A man's trust is a valuable thing, Button. You don't want to lose it for a podcast.
Okay. Don't want to lose it for a
handful of cards.
Game of cards.
That line comes very early in the film. And it to me feels like Costner stating his intent of like, this is where this movie is operating for the next 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Trust?
Everything is totemic. Everything is like the grandest statement possible about what defines a man.
Yeah.
Right? Every action, every line, every shot. It's like, this is a movie about moral fiber.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is about where you stand.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, you're like, oh, that was a throwaway line that Robert Duvall delivered as if it was the most important line in the movie. 10 minutes later, Costner kicks Diego Luna off a horse.
Yep.
Diego Luna's like, what's going on? He's like, the fucking card thing.
He's still mad about it.
I told you.
I apologized. Wow.
Everything matters.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
I got to that line and I was like, this isn't the best line in the movie, but it feels like the quote I have to do because it just stands out so strongly and early.
Really defending your line choice here.
They're the longer ones.
No.
You don't want to hear a longer one?
It is a lot of monologues. This has got some monologues, some meaty monologues. Kevin Costner loves to give a speech to a woman.
He does.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just be like, you stand there for a second. Yeah. I'm about to pop off.
Yeah.
I'm going to uncork.
I'm going to tell you how it is.
It would be cool if it was just like Kevin Costner live at Red Rocks and it's just women in the audience. And he's just talking.
He just like locks in with Jennifer Garner.
Great.
He's like, you're getting the next 5 minutes.
What I want, I want Kevin Costner to do a Kevin Smith style tour. I want him to do Evening Harder.
Just him motherfucking Taylor Sheridan.
He could fund Horizon that way.
He could.
Yeah, exactly.
He could. And it's like, right, I want him to like talk shit about his past projects and the coward executives who got in the way of his vision.
Right.
Yeah. But I also want him to just plant his feet, look at a woman in the second row, and explain to her what a man is.
He's usually right. I'm not objecting.
This is the thing.
Like, I'm usually like, yeah, you're right. That's what a man should be like. Okay, Kev.
I think, Chris, you're a little older than David and I.
Okay.
I think for our generation, in particular, David, and even more so, I'd argue almost doubling for every generation below us, there is this kind of attitude I see from younger people that is like, he's a problem, right? Is Costner a problem? And their evidence is just like, he's got the vibes of someone who's a problem. The things he represents in his basic essence seem to be weaponized by the worst people in the world.
Sure, you mean this kind of heartland dad, thing.
Men are men, and the woman, you gotta look her.
And all this sort of stuff. And he's not. I mean, we got into this a lot in the Postman episode of like his odd politics.
Right.
That often are defined by this sort of Western value of like,
you need one good man to stand up.
Right. One good swing vote.
Right.
And that man is Tom Daschle.
Yeah, that's the thing. He likes like Mayor Pete. I keep bringing this up.
Yes.
Because I'm like...
This is the thing. He's so weird. And then you say something like...
he's kind of middle of the road.
Of course. You say something like Costner likes to stand and look at a woman and tell her a bunch of stuff. And you're just like, oh boy. And then you watch it and you're like, this is the most compelling shit I've ever seen in my life.
He's good at it. He knows what he's good at.
Yeah. There was, when on draft day, Chris, I remember talking to the screenwriters a bunch about how they had to rewrite the script when he came on, because it was they wrote it with the intention of it being an Affleck movie.
Oh wow!
They were like, "That's our idea. Is it's like he's in his 40s." Casey,
imagine if it's Casey. Hey, I'll trade you a pick.
I want Fonte Mac no matter what. You pancake eating motherfucker.
That's maybe too quiet. Maybe too quiet.
Pancake.
All right, they wrote it with Affleck in mind.
They wrote it with Affleck in mind. And then it went to Paramount. It ended up going to Lionsgate, but it went to Paramount.
Right.
And Paramount was like, you know who we'd make this movie with? Kevin fucking Costner.
Wow.
Like some exec had the brilliant idea of like...
You know who's good at monologuing.
And you know who's a little too old to be on the field?
Right.
But we love him in sports movies.
Right.
And it was right after Hatfields and McCoys and they brought him back. And they were like, we had to rewrite it a bunch when Costner came on. Because you just have to run through your head the idea that everything Costner says feels like it's representing America. Like he is like a living physical embodiment of an idea for good and bad.
Chris, do you like draft day? You a draft day guy?
I'm a big draft day like rewatcher. Like especially certain scenes, I want my picks back. Like I'll just throw that on just to get in the right mind state before a pod.
What was the matter with America not embracing that movie with open arms? Like, yes, of course, its destiny was airplane movie, cable movie. Like, of course, in retrospect, you see it and you're like, yeah, well, it's a movie. It's in offices. It's perfect for that. What the, come on.
Well, look, we'll get to later in the episode the 21 years between Open Range and Horizon Part 1 in American Saga.
Sure.
Or Horizon American Saga Part 1.
I think that's it.
Yeah. Where he does a lot of stuff, but he doesn't direct anything in between. But this feels like the second Horizon, the second swing at what Draft Day was attempting to do 10 years ago, which was Hatfield's and McCoy's weirdly overperformed. Was like the highest rated broadcasting cable in years.
Right.
The 2 or 3 parts of that.
He likes to mention that whenever anybody is just like talking about Yellowstone, he's like, and Hatfields and McCoys, by the way.
I made the History Channel, so
it's
fuck you.
kind of forgotten now.
No, it is. It was a big deal. You're right.
He won the Emmy for it? Is that right?
I don't know.
I think he did. I think he won the Emmy.
Yeah, he won an Emmy.
It was a huge broadcast.
Right.
And all the studios like sat up and they were like, fuck, is Costner back?
Right.
And this is coming off of a 10-year period where like Open Range is his most successful movie, I think, if you average out critical consensus and box office consensus.
Sure.
Maybe
like
had
the
a
2000s.
few that were
And
slightly
also
better
dads
received.
who were like Open Range rules.
Right.
Correct. Which is why which is why we're all here today.
It was a film that had
Open
kind
Range
of lingered,
rules.
right?
Yeah.
But he had like in that period.
No, you're right. It's like Rumor Has It and, swing vote and Upside of Anger, stuff where it's like, yeah, no one really loved it. It's a shadow of a better thing he's made before.
Right. Totally. Hatfields and McCoy's hits really big.
Yeah.
Every studio sits up. Snyder's the first guy to pull him and be like,
put him in.
Idea of America, he's Superman's dad.
Right.
And then these like 3 separate studios all have this strategy of like, we're going to relaunch Costner. And it was a 3-punch thing of in January, Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit is coming out. He's the elder statesman mentor figure.
Right.
In February, I think the movie was called 3 Days to Kill.
The McGee movie.
Yes, which was now Costner's got a gun. He's doing his Taken.
Right.
And then in March, or maybe it was the beginning of April, Draft Day comes out, and it's Costner, Sports, Monologue, Dad.
Right.
And those 3 movies in a row will have primed the pump, and Costner's back. And Jack Ryan bombed, and the Lionsgate people were like, well, it's not really on his shoulders. Maybe Chris Prime was a little green. We're not worried.
Pine. Yeah.
3 Days to Kill came out, and they were terrified. And they were like, we fucked up. The movie's going to bomb.
Right. I mean, 3 Costners in 3 months is maybe too much Costner.
Yeah. But there was this strategy, and it was premature. This is Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
It's a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their careers, such as making a Best Picture winner. That's one of the highest grossing films of its decade, if not of all time at that point. It was way up.
It was a big hit.
Yeah. And are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. Sometimes those checks clear and sometimes they bounce, baby.
Yeah.
This is a mini-series on the films of Kevin Costner, director.
Yeah.
And today we are talking about the only normal-sized film he ever made.
Yeah.
Not talking in terms of length. This is the only time he stepped up to the plate and wasn't going, I'm making an epic, I'm making a classic.
Well, as I told Chris, though, it is his shortest film.
It is.
Yeah.
Which is wild. But it's him being like, I'm just going to make one.
I'm gonna make a paperback Western for you guys.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
How better to describe it? Who's our guest?
Podcast with Wolves is the name of this miniseries.
Sure.
Today we're talking Open Range.
Yeah.
And our guest today, for the first time ever, long overdue. You were saying, I think, the most requested.
The most demanded guest.
Yes.
I just didn't want to waste his time with his nonsense.
But this is what you're here to talk about. The man, the legend, the saga, the American saga that is Kevin Costner. Chris Ryan.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Hey,
you can
Chris.
refer to me as Blue Bonnet from now on.
Hell
Also, it's my
Hell
given name.
You'll open up to that. You'll admit it.
I was very excited to revisit this movie with you guys because I realized that this is something where I probably have watched the gunfight 300 times.
Yeah.
Of course.
And some other scenes, but like it's been a long time since I really crossed the river and then crossed the river and then crossed the river.
Yeah.
Then went into town, then crossed the river. This like in a long time where I did the full sit and watch.
sat and ate beans a couple times, then you
Played
back
some
on
cards,
the horse,
yeah.
right? Play some more cards, go visit the doctor. How you doing? Yep, go ahead.
Chris, right before we started recording, we were talking about the day we're recording this is the day after he did an extended sit-down interview with Michael Fleming of Deadline in anticipation.
One of the great interviewers, Michael Fleming. Wow.
In anticipation of Horizon premiering at Cannes, where Costner just said some Hall of Fame shit. But the point he keeps coming back to is like, there's a way I tell stories, and I trust and respect my audience, and the studios don't fucking get it.
Yeah.
And I don't care about them. I care about the people. And this is a movie that's like not a difficult watch, but you are like, he demands that you fully lock into what he's doing. You have to adjust to his rhythms and his timing and his pacing. And even just what you said of like, you're going to cross the river 7 times.
Yeah.
It's not going to be 5. He landed on 7 for a reason. He shot 9.
Yeah.
He cut 2 out. He wants you to know it could have been longer.
The tone of the Deadline interview is this kind of dad thing of like, I know better. Like, and the undertone of the Deadline interview, right, that I feel like no one is like, that he's not specifically saying is like Taylor Sheridan writes every episode of Yellowstone. So when Costner's like, look, there were a lot of overruns. I get it. Writing is hard. He's specifically saying, like, this is fucking Taylor Sheridan just like writing the whole goddamn thing.
Yes.
Is fucking me up, and I'm sick of it.
And he keeps adding new shows to his plate.
Right, and he keeps adding, he's going to film every year as a television show. Like, that's his idea. He's like Sufjan Stevens, but he's doing years. He's just like, 1982? What was going on then?
2 AD, Yellowstone 2.
Yeah, just 2. It's just fucking
my favorite part of that whole run in that interview is Costner explaining modern streamer shenanigans with splitting 6 into 5A and 5B as seasons is like my mom trying to explain crypto, where it's just like, you don't really know what we're doing here. Like, you could just say they didn't abide by the contract, but him being like, there was a 6 and a 7, but then it became a 5B. And I actually, you know what? Like, I think probably in his position, I'd be like, what is this 5B shit?
He knows
Speak truth to power.
Yeah, he knows that it's wrong. I don't think he can explain why.
I'm not mad about it, but I'm rewatching Mad Men. I'm almost done.
Wow.
And Mad Men did the 7A, 7B, right?
Maybe the first major
early in that
AMC with Breaking Bad,
right?
And Mad
where they
Men
were like,
really...
we can't say goodbye. Like, let's spread it out.
Right.
7A, 7B. And so halfway through your season 7, suddenly fucking Sterling's got a mustache.
Yes.
And is like, fuck. Sorry, I said my wife's name. Forky was like, what the hell? And I was like, you don't understand. Like 6 months passed between these 2 episodes, and it's bullshit. Just do a new season.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Well, no, the backbone of the thing is
they're not. They don't want to renegotiate your deal or whatever, right? Like,
it's not even that. It's not even renegotiating. Whatever you sign up for on the onset, it's baked in. Every season you get X percentage pay raise, even if it's 2% up.
Right. They don't want to give you a raise.
Right. And they go, this is 1 season, but we're going to show the 2 parts of the season, 8 months apart, release them in 2 calendar years. We get 2 bumps
2
in our quarterly
campaigns,
earnings. We get 2 Emmy campaigns. We don't have to pay you shit extra.
Did you see in the interview that
he's right? It's bullshit.
Of course he's right. That he went to Cannes to see a Matrix movie.
Yeah.
Can you imagine him just like vibing with the Matrix Reloaded and like putting on his hat and being like, well, that was interesting.
This comes
fun to meet the architect.
That architect had a lot of good points. Maybe he should run for office.
My only complaint, he should have stood up.
Yeah, because
cowards sit in chairs when they monologue. A man stands up, plants his 2 feet.
Would have been better if he was talking to a woman, telling
Trinity.
But Neo is a swing vote. There.
Yes.
It's like, look, left or right, Neo.
Do you think that inspired him?
Yeah.
Do you think he walked out of Matrix Reloaded into the studios at Disney?
He said, get those guns out of here. Get those agents. Take off those dusters. We got something.
That would have been him going to see The Matrix Reloaded. This movie comes out almost dead in between Reloaded and Revolutions.
Yeah, it came out summer of 2003. Yeah.
Just an interesting way to place where this movie is and how anomalous it is in the studio landscape in 2003.
Chris, what's your Costner relationship? What's your sort of life with Costner like?
It's uncomplicated, and it's super positive.
Yeah.
He has been somebody who, you know how like when you're a kid your friends' older siblings or like the kids who were like in high school and you're in middle school or whatever, like they seem impossibly old to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're like, oh my God, when I'm as old as Alex's brother, like I'm gonna be like 50. That's how Costner always seemed to me and always seems.
Yeah.
Like he always seems like he is like this thing that's gonna be the next phase of my life.
That's
like, even all
man.
the way back to Untouchables where he's like this clean-cut kid.
Right.
He already seemed 50 to me.
I'll say that was the other thing the draft day writer said was everything we had to look at again, the character doing and saying through the prism of everything this guy does represents America, and he is everyone's dad.
Yeah. He's everyone's dad, basically from like 1987 onwards.
Yeah.
So that's basically it. And it's like his interests are at my base and core. Like I love the West. I love baseball.
Yep.
I like standing and looking out over the landscape and dreaming big.
Talking to women.
Like, yeah, and I love it when a woman just like gives me an audience, you know, like she's just like, tell me what's up. No, I just think he's been such a constant presence in my movie going life from as early as I can remember. I mean, my parents even telling me like that was supposed to be Kevin Costner in Big Chill, when I first would walk through the living room and they were watching that, and he's so like a real stalwart in my movie going life.
They had it on like twice a week. You were like, you guys okay?
Oh my God. The soundtrack was on every night.
Yeah, the soundtrack was on in my house a lot.
But how else are you going to wash the dishes? Silently?
It is funny that, yes, like the things he most represents are baseball and, being a cowboy.
Yeah.
And those are things that
baseball
it's like.
and horses.
Yeah. We have not left these things behind in America, in American culture exactly, but they are old fashioned now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're more like things we're putting museum, like sort of line around, right? Like where it's like, yeah, no, we still respect baseball. It's still fine. It's good. I love baseball, to be clear, but like, it's passing into, it's like jazz now.
This is where I'm saying that younger people, I think, misread him, where they're like, it feels like this guy's whole attitude is things were better back then, which it isn't.
No, he has like a perspective on stuff.
Right. But everything he does is rooted in there was a time.
Yeah.
So did you see Open Range in theaters, Chris? I'm assuming yes.
I think so. So I would have been 03 in New York. Like I think I was probably I think I remember seeing it on a big screen. So yes, but it also is one that like it was a TNT stalwart and an HBO or Cinemax stalwart. So
put some ads in that thing. 3 hours
clean through.
That's prime time solved. 8 to 11 on TNT.
Chris, I was trying to do the math on your wildly popular podcast, The Rewatchables. Would Costner maybe be the most covered actor?
It's Cruise, but he's up there.
Okay.
He's probably on the Rushmore of people that we've covered on the pod.
You guys should do Open Range. Now I'm realizing we're actually kind of bogarting this from you a little bit.
Well, I think honestly, like I wouldn't be surprised if someday we do.
Yeah.
But it would be something where it was like I don't know if Bill would love the first hour of this movie
because it's a slow burn.
It's pretty deliberate, it's deliberately paced. So, I don't think I've ever really heard him mention it, but like I know his dad is super into westerns, and he would probably have seen it at some point.
I do feel like you said, the film's ultimate cultural reputation is that it has one of the best gunfight scenes in like any western ever made.
Period.
Right.
Yeah.
And
you know who thinks that? Kevin Costner.
Another instance of him being correct.
Of
him standing up and saying something.
Jeez, the ego on you. Not disagreeing, but like, Jesus.
Takes some balls to say that. By the way, your balls look great.
He probably has really nice balls. I saw this film alone. This is the first film that I ever saw by myself.
Wow.
It is a very clear memory for me. I was 17 years old, and guess what? Nobody in Britain, none of my teenage friends wanted to go spend 140 minutes with Kevin Costner in Open Range. I had to go by myself.
You look at the box office, this movie almost made negative money overseas.
Like, I'm actually amazed it was available to me in London. But I was like, just no, come on. It's like they have guns.
Yeah.
And people were like, I have to go to like a house party and smoke weed.
This is maybe another aspect of Costner's reputation changing, is like this is when Hollywood starts to become a lot more obsessed with overseas grosses and overseas values. It's not like this is the first moment, but this is certainly things getting more intense. It was already starting to happen to him in the 90s. He is such a fundamentally American star. That his movies, and it's maybe why he was trying to take swings on things like Postman and Waterworld, that even though they're very cowboyish, kind of traffic in this sort of larger...
Right, let's bring genre right into it. Yeah.
But like, you look at, you know, Costner's like Big Ten, let's say. When you try to like actually place yourself in the headspace of the run this guy had, that was so insane, was borderline, like arguably as good as any run any A-list star had, in the consistency of it.
Right.
And not just that it was like a series of almost unbroken hits and critical successes, and many of them also Oscar successes, but that run has basically all become canonized as rewatchables like for everybody.
Untouchables, Bull Durham, Field of Dreams, Dance with Wolves, Robin Hood, JFK, Bodyguard. Like that's sort of, There's
that run is insane. What those 6 or 7 movies
No Way Out
you just listed basically all happened in a row.
That I just did it in a row. I took out No Way Out and Revenge, but you know what? Both those movies are awesome too.
Both those movies are sick. Like both.
And then he caps it with Perfect World, which isn't like a huge hit, but it's great. We've talked about this.
He's excellent in.
And then it's right. And then it's this tough period in the later 90s of Wyatt Earp, Waterworld, The Postman, where Tin Cup is the one like kind of fun movie in there.
And Waterworld has kind of retroactively become one of his
people kind of dig Waterworld now. How do you feel about Waterworld, Chris?
I feel like it's honestly a rite of passage. Like I would almost say it's like Citizen Kane. Like you got to watch it once.
You got to watch it once.
You
know?
Yeah. All right. So what about you? Did you see Open Range in the theater? No, you would have been. Yeah.
Was it because I was too young? I just wasn't a big Western guy. Costner hadn't come to terms with it yet.
Are you now, Griff? Have you become like a big Western fan?
I wouldn't say I'm a big Western fan, but I love Westerns. I always feel like it's one of those things like horror as well. And I know you're a guy who goes so deep on horror, where I'm like, I love horror. I think you need to have certain bona fides to say you're a horror guy or a Western guy. And it's about like digging around the corners.
Right. I have not seen the C tier of great 50s Westerns, probably.
Yeah.
Right. Like the deeper you go.
I'm
I
always
love
trying to fill in gaps.
Yeah.
Are
you a big Western guy, Chris?
Yes. Yeah. I don't know like how completist I am, but like I mean, it's up there among my favorite genres, and I often will like go to sleep watching like whatever spaghetti thing I can find on Tubi that I haven't seen before. Right. You know what I mean? Like it's a very, very, very familiar genre to me, and I will watch guys get off a train and walk into a town and get a horse and kill someone no matter what.
But like killing someone, great, sure, I'm into
we love it. We love murder on this
compelling.
Podcast,
but I truly am like the fucking screensaver of guys in leather jackets sitting by a campfire with horses.
Yeah.
And like one guy's playing the harmonica, and like I'm just like, just sit me here. I'm saying to my wife the whole time, like, I should do this. And she's like, you would die in minutes.
Oh,
like
second.
Like you wouldn't make it one night without like being like, where is the bathroom? Like, but you immediately, I'm like, I want to be in this as long as I can. What?
Let's be obvious. You'd be the saloon owner who is never shot from anywhere but behind the counter. That's who you would be in a Western. You would never step outside.
The saloon owner who just won't put anything on the line. He's just like, I'm just trying to make a buck here.
Right.
I can't help that Baxter runs the town.
What if I ran the cafe? I like how there's a cafe in a lot of Westerns.
Oh, I need to talk to you guys about the prevalence of cafe culture in Open Range. It's so weird that like we found Button feasting on cafe scraps. I'm like, what the hell? Like, come on.
I just like the idea, like, no, now I ain't opening no ordinary restaurant out here on the plains. No, I'm opening a cafe. Wait, what does that mean? Like that he like has bacon? Like what makes it?
I got me a barista coming in from Brooklyn.
You ever heard of matcha?
It means you sit down at a table for 4 hours, even though you're actually only eating or drinking for like 45 minutes, and you bring your abacus there. Abacus.
That's where you read all your correspondence. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what it is, right? Yeah. You're going back and forth.
Just going through the almanac.
David, my version of that screensaver is essentially the scene in Rio Bravo where Ricky Nelson and Dean Martin are singing.
Yes.
And that's where I've actually said to my wife, I was like, if I die, you could bury me here. And she's just like, you're the weirdest person I've ever met.
Chris,
you're like,
that is my favorite Western. And that scene you're describing, the Rifle, My Pony, and Me scene, I just, the first time I saw that probably at some rep theater screening, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, it had been a big blind spot. And I got to the scene, I was like, this is as good as anything gets.
Yeah, it really is.
This is as level as I have ever felt in my life. Just the sense of absolute comfort and satisfaction in that
pure
scene.
Wellbutrin. It's just like, it's leveled out. Yeah.
Incredible.
I like I'm worried about her because Horizon's like a Civil War saga, right? Like Horizon's got like a lot of deeper stuff going on, right?
My understanding is that it's sort of him making a movie about the way America transformed as a result of the Civil War more than a Civil War
movie.
Movie.
It's not gonna be like a war movie exactly,
right?
Right. Whereas like I want Open Range, where it's like the conflict in this movie is they want to have their cattle graze wherever they damn please,
right?
And this Irish gangster is like, well, that's my land. Don't do it. And that's it. That's it. That's the whole fight.
Here's the plot of the whole movie. Ready? We're Open Rangers.
Right.
I don't like Open Rangers.
I don't know what that voice is.
I don't either.
You
Open Rangers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna kill one of your guys. Or he says, I'm gonna beat up one of your guys.
Yeah.
They get angry.
Yeah.
They go to get revenge. He kills one of the other
kills
guys.
the same guy.
Right.
And tries to kill another one.
Injures the other guy.
Yeah.
And then they're like, I guess we got to have a shootout.
I guess we got to fucking take this town to pieces.
Right. And the last hour and a half of the movie is them prepping for the shootout and then the shootout.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Costner uncorking a monologue at the dip ending.
Yeah.
While she just takes it like a fan in her face.
But it's a movie where there is like one disagreement that is had early on.
Yeah.
And things spiral out from there, leading to an inevitable shootout.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
It's very simple. It's based on a book that looks like, just like a paperback, like, with the cover. It's just someone just drew a horse and was like, I'm done.
It's like it's like a guy with a girl is resting on his bosom, and like he's looking out at the plains and he's just like, well, we've tamed another town. There we go.
But it's so funny to me that like every other time he stepped up to the play as a director, he is taking on something that is by its very nature, almost by design, unwieldy.
Yeah. Dances, Postman, sure. Yeah.
Right. He's going against like so many forces.
This is like, let me strip it down. Well, let me give you a little bit of the Costner, what he's been up to.
Sure.
Since The Postman.
Mm-hmm. Not great.
He makes Message in a Bottle, a movie I've never seen.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever seen Message in a Bottle?
I've not seen that film.
Is that Diane Lane? No, Robin Penn.
Robin Wright. And it's one of the last Paul Newman movies.
Oh.
Interestingly.
Huh.
It's a movie that does okay.
It's a Nicholas Sparks movie.
The first Sparks, I think.
Right.
He was sparking one up.
It does all right.
Yeah.
He does For Love of the Game. Now, Chris, you have to have a For Love of the Game take.
It's not one of my favorite sports movies.
It should be a masterpiece. It is so frustrating to watch.
It's a little bit of a tough, loss for Raimi, for Cause, for like that. Why isn't that good?
But
I feel like I'm in a pretty minority position at the Ringer when it comes to Love of the Game.
Other people love it.
Really?
It's like Bill is obsessed with it. I think because of how it screws up baseball. But yeah.
Oh, also because he made it in the middle of the steroid era and like watched like Jason Giambi juicing up or whatever it was.
Right, and possibly fucked Cal Ripken's wife. I'm repeating a rumor.
The rumor is that he fucked Cal Ripken's wife and Cal Ripken broke his hand and they had to sabotage Camden Yards.
That the electric grid went down in the city so that Cal
Ripken's
street could stay alive.
Could continue.
Yes,
that's great.
Yes,
yeah.
We did a full episode on it, Chris. And it is weirdly a movie where Costner staked everything, where he did his classic, I'm not Ahab, but it has to be this way, and fought really hard on everything and made everything more difficult and lost the battle. But also, infamously, when the movie was coming out, in the press just shit-talked the movie a bunch. Was like, these execs are cowards, they didn't back up my vision, and they're like, you're not the fucking director, dude.
Right.
And Universal issued a statement that was like, Kevin Costner was holding our asset hostage. Yeah. And this was in the week or two before the movie came out. So that movie's underperformance also just kind of makes him borderline radioactive to studios. Of like, is this guy no longer capable of being reined in?
3 more movies. 13 Days, which we've talked about. Solid.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Sort of like him doing an accent again, him and politics.
Yeah.
But it's a solid movie.
But cost a lot of money, didn't make a ton, didn't get the Oscar nominations they clearly were hoping for.
3,000 Miles to Graceland, a film I've never seen. Obviously, like a notorious bomb.
Right.
Chris, I assume you have not seen 3,000 Miles to Graceland.
I've not seen. I'm not a big Elvis like mythology guy. Yeah.
But that's the absolute nadir. Like that's the point where it's like he
then
just
there's
released a movie that did nothing. Right.
Which is I never saw also, I'll admit. But
we'll cover in 10 years.
Fine.
And as JJ pulled out, at the peak of his career in the mid-90s, he drops all of his representation.
Right. He fired Michael Ovitz. Or no, he fires CAA when Michael Ovitz leaves CAA.
Mm-hmm.
And he just has no agent. And he had no PR person. I don't show up to interviews and say this or that question is off limits, like he said. So maybe he finally is like, something's not working.
But I think basically everything between Postman and Open Range is him in the wilderness where he's like, I make my own decisions.
And he decides, I'm going to make a Western. He developed 2 Westerns.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what the other one was, but Open Range is one of them. This guy, Craig Storper, who wrote it, is a grip, basically, and who's adapting this like sort of, dime store Western novel that Costner had read. Oh, no, he didn't know it. Okay, right.
He says he's read other works by the same author.
Lauren Payne.
But had been working with this guy for like almost a year developing the script and only then realized it was based on a book.
Can I just say another
please.
one of my favorite bits in the Deadline piece is when Costner's like, yeah, I showed Taylor the Horizon script just in case they needed some Yellowstone writers. Like we were just wanted to show them what we were working with over here. I was just imagining Taylor Sheridan be like, thanks, man.
Cool, man. He's handing him this like bound volume too. It's probably like wrapped in leather.
Right. This guy wrote 4 movies in the time it's taken you. Right, that must have been part of this kind of like the subtweet of the thing.
I feel like the fundamental thing is Costner is like, I am king, not you. And I sort of know what he means.
I do too.
Because like now the Yellowstone mythos is all like, oh, Taylor Sheridan, like the bard of the fucking, Mountain West, right?
Yeah.
Like, and Costner's like, Yellowstone doesn't work without me, doesn't, explode without me, which is probably true. And that just festers.
But also, I mean, this is in the Deadline piece. Costner talks about how he doesn't do press ever unless he's promoting a movie, right? Or promoting a TV show. That he refuses to speak to the press outside of promotional cycles for new projects. And so he's like,
I don't even know what that means. It's like, you mean you don't just like go on pods? Like, what are you talking about?
I mean, look, he's yet to say yes to us.
Come on, Cos. We worked with you.
We offered him Mirror Has 2 Faces. He never got back to us.
It's unrealistic.
I love Babs.
No, but he was just like, I've basically let them for a year and a half say whatever the fuck they want about me, leaking stuff from anonymous sources about how I was unprofessional and shut down Yellowstone. And he's like, I didn't break my rule. I didn't talk to anybody.
Right.
Now I have my new movie coming out, so I'll tell you exactly where I stand. And he lays it out very basically, which was just like, I don't want to have downtime where I'm not working.
No, I to be clear, I sympathize with Kevin Costner. I think Yellowstone was probably annoying to make, only got more annoying with all the delays. And he's like, look, I'm not a young man.
Right.
I want to go do stuff.
And they carved out, they were just like, here's when we'll be shooting, here's when you won't be shooting. And he tried to develop, he finally has the capital to fucking mount his big magnum opus movie. And then they suddenly were like, it's a 5A and it's a 5B, and the 5A isn't starting for 16 months.
Right.
And he was like, I sat around on my ass for 14 months. I didn't shoot anything when I was contractually like obligated. Anyway,
So,
whatever.
Fuck you. My favorite part was when Mike Fleming disses the runtime of his movie and he says, oh, shut up.
Yeah.
I like that part.
And then he keeps circling back and saying,
I was just joking. I was just joking. But why are you so obsessed with the runtime?
He was like, this number you're fucking in love with is my favorite part. Oh, boy.
Do you guys like Yellowstone?
never watched it.
Yeah.
The little bit I've seen of it felt like something I would vibe with, of like, Dallas with horses, right? Like where I'm like, this is fun, but I was not
first two
so
seasons
compelled.
are great.
Right.
The first two seasons are awesome. It's just got a little bit of like we can't afford to kill any of these people, but the entire like the world that we've created is so violent,
right?
That like people survive office bombings and walk out smoking.
It's like a Marvel problem.
Yeah, but it had like a real amazing spirit the first 2 seasons. I thought it was just like took itself so seriously,
right? Which
but
is the
was
Sheridan
really
thing.
entertaining and is awesome. Yeah,
What's your power ranking of the Sheridan shows? Because I know you're America's #1 Lioness defender.
I am. I thought Lioness was incredible, and I also am a big fan of the first season of Mayor of Kingstown.
Oh,
But
sure, that's the Renner.
That is for absolute sickos. Like I can't with a straight face recommend that to anyone who.
Right, that's one of those
believes in
things where Paramount spins a wheel for a while, and then they're like, "Really? Like you didn't? This isn't Mayor of Kingstown, to be clear. It's not the one with Kate Winslet."
This is the plot of an episode in the first season of Mayor of Kingstown. A meth dealer blows up a house with a child inside of it and goes to prison, and Jeremy Renner's character orchestrates his assassination by multiple racial gangs in a prison. And the whole thing is like the cops are gonna let it happen, and Jeremy Renner's like, you shouldn't, because if you do this, the lion will be out of the cage. And you get like 30 minutes into it, and you're just like, what am I watching? Like, how is this on my screen?
Fucking Diane Wiest is in this. What the hell is this show about? It's like set in like a town where prison is the business.
Michael Clayton for jail.
That's Renner's character?
Right. He's the mayor.
He is like the fixer of the city, but mostly in the corrections office. He's a bail bondsman of some kind. And he basically does a lot of like, I'm going to get these guys to like lay off the drug dealing while the guards are on strike, or, like all sorts of stuff like that.
Aidan Gillen plays a Russian mobster?
This is the thing.
He sure does.
If you go to any...
How's that accent?
It's exotic.
It's spicy.
If you go to any Sheridan show and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, go down to number 12 on the cast list, the name will blow your mind.
Yeah, because it's always right. It's always these like Oscar winners. I mean, I know the guy has obviously a track record at this point that he can draw in people.
Yeah.
And I do feel like he has this mystique where he's got his cowboy hat and he's like, yeah, I'm just doing my thing, man. And like, that works, right? And then you get Nicole Kidman in Lioness,
and
right?
She's Morgan Freeman. It's just kind
Morgan
of like,
Freeman is in Lioness.
All right, now, not to speak ill of Morgan Freeman, but he's in a weird place.
He's in a very weird place.
Yeah. But like, there is a scene in Lioness where it's like, it's Nicole Kidman, Michael Kelly, and Morgan Freeman are talking to one another about like the Lioness program. And it is another like, pinch me, I can't believe we've arrived here in entertainment.
What the fuck is the Lioness? Wait, this is a real thing. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Huh.
Taylor Sheridan's never made up a thing in his life.
Well,
it's all real.
Wait, and he's got something new that's okay. Billy Bob Thornton is like an oil guy. All right.
Yeah, that one I'm
pretty
really
good.
excited for. Landman.
John Hamm's in it. Oh, he's playing like a titan of the Texas oil industry. That's interesting. Isn't it funny how John Hamm like now only plays the worst, richest people in the world?
Yes.
Like he's just jumped to that. He's like Elon Musk in everything now.
Yes.
Like he is charming, someone could do that with him again.
He's another guy who's in a weird place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To pull it back to the Western,
please.
I will say that probably the best thing I think he's done is still 1883.
Right. That was the one everyone was vibing. The Sam Elliott thing.
Yes. Yeah. Which is just a really, really amazing, I Lonesome Dove is my favorite Western novel, and
Lonesome Dove is amazing.
The miniseries, it has the same kind of like, we're on a wagon train, they were on a cattle driving Lonesome Dove, but this is a wagon train going west, trying to get to Oregon, and Sam Elliott's leading them through the Badlands, kind of, and it's just it was just an awesome like miniseries conceit, and the when they end it, because you kind of think, oh, this is going to go on for 6 seasons, like they can take their time getting to Oregon, it could take forever. It ends like with such a hammer, and it actually is so effective the way it ends that I really admired Sheridan for like being like, I'm walking away from the bag, and just
we're not doing
I'm actually going to have like, I'm not going to get Yellowstone where like we're somehow keeping all the main characters alive,
right,
for 5 seasons. It's really brutal.
But let's also say Sam Elliott, much like Robert Duvall, is the rare modern actor who you put him in a Western and it's just automatic integrity. It is automatic credibility.
It's legit.
Right.
Yeah.
It's, you're making a real Western.
Do you think Duval's obviously incredible in the Lonesome Dove miniseries?
Yeah.
Like this character isn't like completely apart from that. Like I feel like the most interesting thing about Open Range is Costner being like Duval's first build.
Yep.
He's the star.
Yep.
I am only making it if he's the star. And I want like that to evoke that kind of like, true gritty,
which I think is a two-pronged
mystique.
thing.
Yeah.
I think it's Costner being like, I worship this guy.
Right.
I want to work with him, and I want to make a work that is basically a tribute to him. And I think the second part of it is Costner is relieving himself of the responsibility of being the
it's
guy.
It's not all on my shoulders. Or whatever.
Whereas much as in many ways he is the protagonist of the film, you feel him loosening up of being like, I can be a little more of a cad.
Yeah.
It's this thing I said that he like talked to me about on the set of Draft Day.
Wow.
Where he was like always talking about Silverado.
Right.
And the
like
sort of breakthrough of Silverado for him, and that he got to be the guy who could just be fun.
Right.
And basically, from that moment on, it's like that launches him to Untouchables. And now it's like, you're the shoulders. You're the steady hand. Other characters, the other guys at the side are getting to be the color in the movie. And you're this like incredibly stoic vehicle for narrative to be carried through. And this feels like by putting that emphasis on Duvall, he gets to cut loose a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he gets to play sort of the sadder, older version of his Silverado guy. Like, what if this guy never kind of grew up, right?
And he kind of has this take of like, this guy's like a Vietnam vet. Like, it's the Civil War, obviously, but it's like, it's the same thing. He's like come back from war and he doesn't know how to like fit into society. And, you know, he's a killer now.
And the weird part of this movie being like this odd kind of emotionally stunted relationship.
Right.
Or like the roadblocks to a relationship between two people who basically have no language for like adult mature romance.
Yeah.
Who both know they're at a place in their lives where like they've maybe missed the window.
Well, they missed the window.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean him and Benning?
Yes.
Yeah, him and Benning. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But just how incredibly awkward he is with her is so endearing.
He literally spends all day hanging out with Robert Duvall and Diego Luna.
Yeah.
These are his boyfriends. Like, this is it. That's his life.
Yes.
They moved.
He's rolling around in the mud. Like, the highlight of his day is digging a wagon wheel out of a pile of dirt. You know what I mean? And then he winds up with a tea set.
Yeah. And he meets her, and it's so clear, like, I want this so badly.
Right.
And I lack the language to make this happen, to understand it, to come to terms with it.
The emotional intelligence.
Yes.
So Costner develops this, and he decides he has to direct it. He felt like the little things, given the state of movies, would have been lost. Someone would have gone through with a fine-tooth comb and eliminated 6 or 7 minutes, brackets, or 40 minutes, Kevin.
Yeah,
Not complaining about the runtime of this movie.
No.
I enjoy it. But Costner, I guess, has the cred to be like, yeah, this movie will be long and we'll sit in the atmosphere of this life.
Yeah.
Rather than just like, let's get to the conflict pretty fast.
And beyond cred, it's that he's putting up a sizable amount of the budget himself. Nothing compared to the Horizon outlay. But he's putting up a lot of the money himself. He's calling in a lot of favors. He's managing the production, getting it to the right size where he knows they'll back the fuck off. And it's shit like, you get to the chocolate scene, which I think is one of the best scenes in the movie.
Yeah.
And is the perfect example of the thing that anyone else makes him cut. And that if he's the actor and not the director on the movie, the director says, do we really need this one in there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my entire like sort of theory about this movie is that it's essentially a B movie.
Yeah.
Like the plot of this film could be done in a 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Quick and tidy. You never spend any time with Michael Jeter. You don't go to the cafe for dinner and meet the cafe owner. You don't meet the chocolate salesman. All the stuff that you spend so much time doing, you could get in and out and knock this out. And honestly, it would have been like fairly entertaining, but probably not as resonant as this movie winds up being.
It's an on-paper programmer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then but he treats it, cause like, it's hard to ascribe, it actually in reading this Deadline thing, it's like, it's hard to ascribe a certain perspective to him because I want to be like, this guy's shooting this movie like it's a European art film. You know what I mean? He's just like, I'm going to get the process of what it was like to be here, and we're going to spend time so that the gunfight feels so momentous. But like, he's got such a unique set of interests, I would say, like in terms of like what he thinks is a valuable use of film.
Mm-hmm.
And once you give yourself over to that, I think there's some magic in there, but it is very odd. It is very odd when you're like 99 out of 100 other directors know that the audience will understand that, like, when they ride away from camp, that they did cross the river, but we don't have to show it.
Yeah.
The third time, and he is like, no, camp was on the other side of the river. So when they go to town, they got to go over the river, and you're just like, again.
It looks nice.
It looks great.
What do you want from him?
And in that Deadline article, it's like he keeps on setting up this sort of battle that's like, I'm fighting executives and studios and networks who don't respect the audience. And I have a deep relationship with the audience. I've had it for decades.
Yeah,
They've been with me. I owe them something. I need to give them what they want. But then the second part of it is, but they actually don't know what they want. I know what they want better than they do.
And it's a Rise in American Saga, parts 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
Motherfucker.
And he's just like, you can't give, I don't care about making money. He keeps saying like, well, I like making money, but I don't care about making money. It's not about this. It's not about that. It's just about, I see a vision of things, and this is how it should be, and this is how it could be done right, and this is what I want to tell the people. I'm not Ahab. He keeps saying I'm not Ahab because I'm not obsessive in chasing these things.
My I'm not Ahab shirt answers all the questions. That sort of Open Range is a smaller version of that.
Yeah.
Disney is like, we will give you $12 million. He puts up 10, it seems.
Yeah. It's him and 2 other guys.
Yeah.
David Valdez, too. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Put together the remaining 10.
Which, like, I think in, like, 1996, he can get this movie funded no problem. But he's also in 1996, he's like, no, let me make 3-hour sci-fi Western epics. Like, I have the know, the backing for it. And now his cred is gone enough that Disney's like, we don't want to do it. We'll do it. We'll kind of do it because you're Kevin Costner and like it's cheap enough.
Yeah.
But like the lack of enthusiasm for a film like this in 2003 is pretty evident. And if anything, people are actually more into a movie like this now.
Yeah.
Like, I do feel like Yellowstone, etc. There is more appetite for the Western, a little bit.
Well, this is what Horizon is going to test out. But
right.
like,
Well, it's not going to do that well. I mean, who knows? Maybe it will. Maybe it'll.
I don't think you should count it out.
I'm not counting it out. He's been counted out before. But, like, I'm not hearing Horizon buzz as I walk the streets of Brooklyn. I guess that's not where I would be hearing it.
1990, Dances with Wolves. Big hit, wins Best Picture. And then 3 years later, Unforgiven.
Yeah. 92,
you had 2 Westerns win within a short period of time that were both these like, tourist movie star driven kind of, Unforgiven's fully revisionist kind of deconstruction thing. But it felt like there was this movement of like, is there a new Western wave coming? And then you have things like Wyatt Earp and Tombstone and whatever. Right. But it does feel like by the time this movie comes out, which is only 10 years after Unforgiven, the thing is done. Like the whole moment had like come and gone. And especially to make a movie like this that is not framing itself as an epic. Because Dances with Wolves was like, well, this is a saga. Unforgiven is like, we're viewing this from a modern vantage point. To make something that's this classical and also this simple, I think felt bizarre. I see a lot of people refer to this as a revisionist Western, which I think it absolutely is not.
No.
Not really.
It is a Western made from someone who lives in a modern world. But I don't think it's revising the view
that feels quote unquote revisionist about it are things like his trauma about the Civil War being a little more direct.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the way that they shoot the gunfight, while I don't know necessarily is note perfect accurate to like what those were like. The idea of like, you do read about like these guys were basically drawing down on each other from 5 feet away and missing because the guns
they sucked.
Were 11 pounds and would misfire and go left and whatever. And like, so those guys standing right in front of each other and just like missing or nicking each other is somewhat, from my understanding, historically accurate. And like, I think he plays up that you don't really, that's not Peckinpah. That's not Leone. That's not Eastwood. Like, you don't have that kind of like intensity of like something could go wrong. There are accidents that are happening all over the place. People are slipping and falling. Like, that's not a classical Western. So that's the revisionist part for me, at least in the gunfight.
But a lot of that, too, to me, is just when, the greatest American studio filmmakers were making Westerns in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. There was a major calculation of these movies are partially for children.
Of course. Right. Good guys, bad guys.
Right. And you're trying to smuggle some of the more complicated themes or psychological depth in there, but you're sneaking it through very conventional, sort of programmatic, like these are the stock beats of these types of movies that audiences have learned to accept and love.
Right.
Now these movies get made more infrequently,
Mm-hmm.
and I do think people put that psychology first and forefront because he's not making this movie for children at all. He's like, this is going to get released in August. This is counter-programming for grown-ups.
It was rated R, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was mad about that.
He's always fucking mad. What was he's mad about that? God, this is just like with For Love of the Game, where he's like, I should say fuck 8 times.
It would have made like $100 million more.
But this is why he's like such an important like modern Western figure, right? His band, of course, is called Casey and the Modern West.
Yeah.
Is because like in his root philosophy, he approaches everything with the attitude of a cowboy in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Westerns like this, like Open Range, are all about like you meet some guys and we establish what their code is. And the dramatic tension for the rest of the movie is going to come from they have drawn a line for the audience.
Right.
Of what they stand for and what they will not stand by and witness. And the whole movie is about pushing them to face those lines and test them to see if they can break. And that's like how he approaches everything he fucking does in his life. I don't care what anyone else says. This is who I am.
Yeah, he's got a zillion quotes in this dossier, which are all, badass stuff. I mean, like, he's a badass. I can't deny it. Like, it's not in vogue. I'm not in vogue, but tough shit. This is a real genre. And like,
in vogue is the term he uses over and over and over again of just like basically after Waterworld and Postman, he's just like, I know I no longer fit into this.
Right.
Right.
And like by 2003, the big movies are what? The Matrix, the Hulk. He brings up Hulk in an interview. Like Pirates of the Caribbean. I wonder what he thought of that.
Yeah. Finding Nemo.
Finding Nemo. He probably liked Finding Nemo.
That's one tough fish.
Yeah. Well, it's got lots of water. He must have loved it. You know?
Exactly. Open Range is about Boss Spearman, played by Robert Duvall, who is a seasoned cattleman. And he's got 3 hired hands. He's got Charlie Waite, that's Kaz, who's an old ex-Civil War sort of, what was he, like an assassin? I don't really, he was like a hired
I think he was
killer.
essentially in like the the 19th century version of Special Forces. So it sounds like he was like plucked out of yeah. And it was like, he was like the lioness of the 19th century. He was plucked out of like the usual infantry to be part of like a kind of guerrilla force that's attacking the Confederates.
That's what I think is key here, is that this is sort of his like Top Gun Maverick character of like, this is an aged hotshot.
Right.
Yeah. And even like the hair is so perfect for that because it's like he has highlights, but it's also thinning.
Yes.
Like that's where this guy is at.
He does have some cool guy tips, though. It's true. Some little frosted tips.
I mean, he had his run in the 90s where the press was constantly mocking the way his hair loss was clearly visibly taking over movie to movie. And he just publicly always said his line, no plugs, no rugs, no drugs. When it's gone, it's gone.
It's still there.
Well, I think at some point he maybe went back on a couple of those things.
To say.
He's got a very different head of hair now.
He does.
It's kind of incredible to watch this where it's just like, it does. His hair symbolizes something. Everything about him symbolizes something.
Now, with them are Mose, played by the great Abraham Ben-Ruby. I love Abraham Ben-Ruby because of ER.
I love him because of Parker Lewis Can't Lose, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So there you go.
He, by all accounts, was cut out of The Postman, and Costner gives him this role as an apologia and then proceeds to beat the shit out of him.
He's really good in it, though.
He's really good. And he does get a lot to do at the beginning. I mean, they have to forefront the character to make his death matter. Yeah. Diego Luna as Button, looking, dare I say, cute as a button.
Here's my big question.
Snack and a half?
No, well, obviously Diego Luna is a cutie pie, but did Costner watch Y Tu Mama
He must have.
Like, that is fun to imagine.
These two men, they stood up straight and they looked this woman in the eye. It's 2 men at once.
Maybe that was also a Ken when he was there for Matrix.
Possibly.
He was like,
yeah, you're right. He shifted his brain into Europe mode.
Oh, he must have seen it, right?
I of course he did. I mean, Diego, this is like the first thing I saw Diego Luna in after Y Tu Mama. I think he's in Frida, but I don't really remember him in that.
But this is kind of the beginning of Hollywood trying to plug him in.
And he's great. He's full of beans.
So
like, he's really a sweetie pie in this movie. But yeah, I don't know. And they are cattlemen, and they're moving cattle.
On the open range.
Free grazing.
They're
so
free grazing.
They're going across the pastures and feeding off of whatever they find, and then like they come into some contact with somebody who doesn't like that.
The late great.
One of my Mount Rushmore actors, Michael Gambon, as an Irish douchebag who owns like a good 40,000 acres or whatever the hell's going. How much land does this guy have that he's like, get your cows off of it? You know,
a lot. I want to see if I can find this. Yes. My grandmother, Chris, is in her 90s, let's say. Okay. And we email a lot. She'll just send me errand thoughts throughout the day as it needs to communicate what's in her heart. This was an email from last September, the day that Michael Gambon died, or the day after. The Sherpa throw is way too large. If you're sure you don't want it, we'll give as an extra present to someone. This is her complaining about the blanket I bought her from Costco. Great puffer jacket's great, warm enough. And then she just writes, new paragraph. Read the obit on Gambon in the Times. Looking at his photo, I felt he was beautiful.
She's right.
Felt more than just sadness, certainly something spiritual.
Aw.
Well, how do you feel about Gambon, Chris? Are you a Gambon man?
Just an incredible character actor, and I am a Gambon man. I also, the Westerns of the late 80s to the early 2000s gave me a lot of self-consciousness about my Irish heritage, because often, at least in Young Guns and Open Range, the Irish are the bad guys.
Yeah, this movie is almost racist to Irish people, I will say.
But Young Guns is straight up racist.
Yes, it is.
Ben, you often weigh in when we cover films on the podcast that are anti-Irish.
I've been known to mention my thoughts. Yeah. I didn't find this portrayal to be very
sensitive.
Yeah. No, not at all.
Like,
I wonder if Jim Sheridan maybe had a different take on this material, if he was like, yeah.
I mean, obviously, like, Sir Michael Gambon, the great Sir Michael Gambon, an Irish actor, you know, to be clear, he's not just like putting on some Blarney accent or whatever.
Sure.
Is the villain here, and that's that. There's this, I guess there's a perspective where you can, this guy made it all the way from fucking Ireland.
Yeah.
He says as much.
His whole thing is like, I just want my goddamn land, and now you're coming. Now, I don't know how much a bunch of cows eating some grass is really messing with his day-to-day margins. Like, he seems to already control a town.
Also, didn't he flee a place where land ownership was kind of the whole problem that he was trying to get away with?
Chip on his shoulder about it. I don't know.
Wow. Yeah.
I think it's much more of a sort of spiritual argument of, if I let this pass, you know, I rule through fear.
Right.
I maintain a hard line. It's less what these guys are doing and more what they represent. Because look, these guys are fucking free.
Yeah.
Is free ranger a thing? I've never heard
to this day. Like, if you're driving in the West, like, you'll see a sign that says open range. And that means, like, cows are allowed to, animals are allowed to eat here, no matter what. Wow. The land ownership situation is. And there's a lot of open range laws in America.
You live by your own laws.
It's kind of what Nomadland's about.
Yeah, it's what Nomadland's about, right? And if this was set in the modern day, Bluebonnet would work at Amazon.
Yeah.
And Costner be pooping in a bucket. It's the best movie with pooping in a bucket in it to win Best Picture, right? Nomadland. Is anyone else pooping a bucket in the Best Picture?
It's actually
winner?
weird there's no bucket pooping in Green Book.
So yeah, right. They go to town, and Denton Baxter, the evil landlord of the town, is like, fuck you. I hate you. You're open rangers. They beat up Mose. They put him in prison. The guys kind of ride in and get Mose out of prison for like $100 or something, like for a lot of money.
Reasonable.
Well, no, it's initially going to be a bunch of money, and then I think Baxter's just like, just get this guy out of here. And
yeah, that's true. They kind of intimidate it. Right. You're right. They lean. And so I guess this movie could just end with them being like, all right, well, this guy's a shithead. Let's go somewhere else. But it sticks in their craw, to use a Griffin expression.
Absolutely. And it's also just like there's a matter of principle here.
Right. And everyone in the town is like, we don't like this guy either, but what are we supposed to do? We're just innocent townsmen.
They bring Mose to the local doctor.
Yeah.
Who's supported by a woman who Costner interprets at first as his wife.
Yeah.
And continues to interpret that way for 90 minutes. Because he's too scared to basically ask.
Yeah.
who is Annette Bening in it. Pretty phenomenal performance.
Benning's amazing in this movie.
She's amazing in this, and I feel like there's almost this is one of the last films in an era before she kind of enters.
Character poster. Did you know this movie had character posters?
I had
no idea.
Now it's ringing bells.
They're really cool.
Yeah.
She's got a gun in her character poster. She doesn't really wield a gun in the movie too much. She's got a moment.
No, but she likes to jump in the middle of a gunfight.
Oh yeah.
I feel like Benning's thing through most of her career is like few people have ever been able to more consistently portray a certain headstrongness.
She's flinty as hell.
Right?
She's the flintiest
There's
actress.
a reason why, look, it's not her best movie, it's not her best performance, but Naiad is like a perfect encapsulation of what Annette Bening has come to represent. It's like, fuck you, let me swim.
God, that movie is a camp classic.
And I think
she's like, if you don't put a gimp suit on me right now, let me swim the goddamn ocean.
There was an incredible emotional sensitivity to what she does as an actor, but this is like one of the most quiet and internalized character she has ever played. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
And it's
she loved this character. Right? She was like, this is a great part. Like she's simple. She's got principles. She's like,
it's so insane. She has made one movie since American Beauty, which she basically like probably should have won the Oscar there. Yeah. She loses surprisingly.
She's the performance in that movie that has aged the best, no question.
She does What Planet Are You From, which is obviously like a noxious bomb. Yeah. But and then like just sort of I think is just chilling. She doesn't really make until this, and
she's
I think
a lot of kids. This is the era
I'm not
where
saying she's not allowed to have kids.
She's pregnant at the American Beauty Oscar year. That was part of the thing. Was people were like, she's gonna get up there, 8 months pregnant, whatever. Right. This is
her coming back.
This is an outlier in her career up until that point, and then after this, she sort of pivots harder into like. And Costner talks about. Studio didn't want her, wanted a younger actress.
Right.
He was like, she's got to be the right age. The whole point is where these two people are in their lives. Right. They got to be in sort of the same station. He's like, you need to believe that she maybe thinks that love has passed her by, and that's not going to be the case with a woman who's 30.
Right.
And he even says in one of the quotes that JJ pulled up, he was like, I like the lines in her face. I think they're cool.
God bless.
And I do feel like Bening is like this ultimate champion for one of the only top-level actresses in Hollywood who is clearly just aged.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean,
maybe she's had invisible micro work done that I can't see, but like more so than anyone else, I'm like, she looks like an adult person.
Yeah.
Yeah, she rocks. I love Annette Bening.
Everybody in this movie pretty much has this like incredible line that they're walking where they look authentically of the place where the movie is set, but they also look like movie stars.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Like even the way that the costumes work, where it's like Kevin Costner just has a cool neckerchief, man. You know, like did guys back then always have cool neckerchiefs? I don't know, but it's a great touch, you know.
It's
and
the
he
little
looks
garnish.
And she has that same thing where it's like she's like wrapped up in a corset the entire movie, but just looks great, man. She looks like Annette Bening, but also Sue, and it's a great piece of like Hollywood movie making in that way.
Costner also, I mean, there are few actors in history who have had a better understanding of how they play on camera. Like, he has such an incredible movie face.
Mm-hmm.
The angles of his head are so fascinating, and he understands the power of them. And like, you just see him making adjustments by a millimeter of the angle so that his nose catches the light the right way or whatever it is.
Right. I mean, we haven't talked maybe enough about Duval.
I want to talk Duval.
Who's unbelievable in this movie, even though it's like, do your thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like this is not some challenge for him.
No.
But it's just a rare gift to see him play a guy like this.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how
this
else
is
to
like
put it.
a very obvious fit of a role where you're watching it and it's very easy to take for granted how high level what he's doing actually is.
It also feels like he's been doing this part for a long time, and then Costner finally turns the camera on. Like he arrives on screen, like fully, the full package is there. I love the note about like how he accepted this in 24 hours. Like he was just like, "Yep, I'm in, but I'll do this."
His reps reach out, or Costner's reps reach out and go, "Hey, we think we have something for Duval. Don't take anything. We can't send him a script yet. It's not ready, but it's being written for him.
Right.
Please don't take on any other jobs." And then they finally get back to him like a month later. They send him the script. He says yes within 24 hours. Duval, for me, is just like the ultimate has that guy ever had a dishonest moment in his entire career on screen? And beyond that, has there ever been a moment where it feels like he's even reaching an inch?
Kicking and screaming?
I'd say he keeps it fucking centralized.
I'm just kind of
The Judge?
The Judge.
I mean, we hate The Judge.
Yeah, it's a bad movie.
I don't think I can ding a moment of his
Speaking of shitting in a
performance.
bucket, actually no bucket.
Yeah,
but,
no,
They just hose it off.
Yeah, right. He lets it all out.
We've talked about The Judge at length. I think that Oscar nomination is
It's pretty
patently
stupid.
absurd.
Right, yeah,
But
yeah.
I can't criticize anything in that performance. I've talked about it before, but he did like a very long sit down with Colbert last year where Colbert went to Duvall's ranch that I think he owns in Montana.
You go to Duval's ranch, and it is in Montana. That is correct.
And it was just like a 40-minute interview.
He's not going to the fucking Ed Sullivan studio.
Absolutely not.
You go to his ranch.
But Colbert was just like, how do you act?
Right.
Like, not to ask the dumb question, but like, what makes you so good? And he gave this answer that I paraphrased a bunch poorly. And you can watch the full clip for the better explanation. But he just talks about like, it is having a sense of your own temperament and finding a way to bring anything the character needs to do within your temperament. So you're never reaching outside of it. Because the moment you reach is the moment something starts to feel fake.
Interesting.
And it's like, yeah, that's his whole fucking philosophy. Duvall just makes everything feel like he's breathing, like it's just him existing. It's
Gone
so
in 60
there.
seconds.
He's not bad in that. Like,
I'm truly just trying to find bad movies.
this is the thing, though. In like absurd movies, you're never like, Duvall hamming it up. There's no, like, he has no like Tommy Lee Jones Two-Face performance.
What about when he played Joseph Pulitzer in Newsies? And he shows up at the end of the movie. He's like, I'm going to crush you fucking kids.
He's gone big, but like, I've never felt like
he goes big. He can go big.
I've never felt him be self-conscious.
What about like if he was playing like a network executive who had like kind of like a successful show on his hands?
That's right.
Like a big titty tat?
What might he say about that?
It's a big, fat, big titty tat.
The other thing about Duval is when I'm a kid, I know two Duvals. I know the Robert Duvall of my life,
Sure.
which is like open range Duval,
Yeah.
bald guy.
Yeah.
And I know that he was in Apocalypse Now and The Godfather with hair.
Yeah.
And I'm almost like there's two different actors to me.
Yeah.
Like I'm like he just became bald Robert Duvall in the 80s, and that is the Robert Duvall that
Right.
I know.
Yeah. In my mind, he's bald in both Godfather and
Right.
Apocalypse Now, even though I know he has hair in them. Yeah.
It's actually insane that he has hair in The Godfather because the hair on his head, even there, feels crazy.
Isn't he's the Barry Pepper part in the original True Grit, right?
That sounds right. Yes. Is he Barry Pepper or Josh Brolin?
I think he's Pepper, but maybe I'm wrong about that. I've
Obviously,
actually
he's
never
also
seen.
like Boo Radley. Like
That's what I was gonna say. Those when you watch those ones, you're like, this is a third actor. How is he ever 20?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he rocks, to be clear.
Yeah.
Like always, even into Kill a Mockingbird. Like, I mean, he's always good. But there is so much like humor and like sensitivity to Boss Spearman. I love that he hates God.
Yes.
And is happy to shit talk God after his nice dog gets killed.
And there is this. I mean, there's the scene where he talks about his failed marriage.
Yeah, no, that's the
Yeah.
best scene. I mean, that's the scene where like, why is he getting an Oscar nomination for fucking The Judge?
Well,
where he's yelling and screaming.
this is our judge
and
argument.
not this.
Our
Like,
judge argument was, if you're giving him a Best Supporting Actor nomination for The Judge, you have to nominate Duvall every time he gives a performance, which I'm
Right.
not against.
Right.
You can do that. It's just more absurd to single out that one.
right.
But yes, it's like he has this beautiful monologue about like his failed marriage, his failed attempt at being a family man. And then Costner's like, he never told me that.
Right.
And it sort of sets Costner off on like, this guy is me plus 25 years.
Yeah.
And there's no looking back for this guy. Is this my final window to like make a happy life for myself?
I mean, it's not failed. They died of typhoid.
I blame that on him.
He fucked up.
Okay, he fucked
I
up.
think that's on Boss.
All right.
No, I mean more in the sense that it's like, and then he just went back to being some lone
Right.
dude
He's just
in a gang
doing
of
this
He
dudes,
gave
for the
up.
rest of his
doing
life.
dude
It's
stuff.
it's so great because like these guys have been out on the open range for is it 9 years?
Yeah.
Is there's and so like this is the first conversation they're having.
Yes.
That is, what do they talk about apart from like what the cows are up to and cards? What do they
Rain.
talk about?
They talk about rain.
Like
talking
they
about
can't even talk about fucking Netflix. Like they have nothing else to talk. They can't
is
even talk about sports.
This is the thing
Like,
that
there
kids
are no
don't understand when they're
sports.
watching this movie is that these characters don't even have Netflix.
It is actually
This
crazy.
guy has never seen Squid Game. You know, like
They don't know about Kissing Booth 1, let alone 3.
And those things are Costnerian in length. They don't even have the Yankees to talk. That actually is crazy that there weren't the Yankees to talk about in America for like the first 100 or so years.
Did I tell you this?
Did they invent balls yet even?
No.
Fuck.
No.
Wow, that's rough. They had carts.
I was
Yeah, they got carts and buggies.
on a plane recently.
Humble brag.
Thank you. I was waiting for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a JetBlue flight. So they got the satellite TVs in the back of the seats, right?
Okay.
got a little direct TV action. Yeah.
Right.
And I'm sitting there, I'm watching whatever.
Fox Business.
Fucking, yeah. I'm probably like flipping on a SpongeBob episode or some shit, right? The guy behind me starts making weird noises. And I was like, oh, fuck. You know that feeling where you're like in a space?
Yeah, no, sure.
Doubly so when
there's
it's
no
an
way
enclosed
out.
space.
Yeah.
And you're like the time I went to see the Wolverine and people started making noises and then I realized someone in the theater had been stabbed. And but it takes a moment to acclimate yourself, right? Like, are we in danger? Especially on a flight. It's intense. And the guy's just going like, yes. And he's right behind me. And I'm like, is this guy having a psychotic break?
What's he watching?
And then I hear a couple other dudes on the flight make that sort of noise.
Yeah.
And then the male flight attendant very sternly walks down the aisle. And I was like, is he about to like chastise? Is he about to break something up? And he walks up to the guy behind me and he high fives him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
And I go, oh, the Knicks must have
the
won.
Knicks one.
You've obviously never flown American into or out of Philadelphia on a Sunday, where like the fully like the whole plane is just like
Yes. All right. Yeah.
And CR, I do not engage with sports. I grew up in a household where it was the number one thing my brother and father care about, and I was around it a lot.
Yeah.
It's not like I had never been
You're aware of sports.
witness to something like this before, but it really did crystallize for me in a moment. Like, there is a certain type of shared language for a certain type of guy who has no other outlet to express his emotions. And the only outburst he will allow himself is on a plane when the Knicks have won.
Well,
That's
that
right.
was a really tough
Right.
one.
or watching the last act of Open Range.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, but this feeling of like
He just wants to be with someone who understands him.
the thing that crystallized for me was the flight attendant clocking the guy and going, I know exactly what he's responding to, and I want to say, hey, I'm right there with you, brother.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
right?
man.
And it was like, in this environment, if you're processing your emotions through sports,
But I'm saying
nothing is socially
But
unacceptable.
open range, they can't talk about what
That's
sports
why I'm
were there.
saying this.
Balls and hoops.
So
or
that's why these
sticks?
guys have never had a fucking conversation.
Yeah, because you can transition from like I don't think the Mets pitching is there this year to
I
when
fucked up my
wife
marriage.
when my
Right.
wife died of typhoid.
This is the thing. It's like, it's
Yeah.
the faucet, right?
I also think it would have made a huge difference if you woke up at the sunrise
Yeah.
and worked nonstop,
Right.
harder than we've ever worked in our lives. Like any day of the week, these guys are like, I had to dig out a wagon
Yep.
and then like move cattle like 4 miles in a circle or whatever they're doing. Like you would be so tired, you wouldn't be like, oh man, what I really want is an episode of SVU just to kind of take the edge off.
Let's also
for a
acknowledge
while.
these guys basically sleep at the office,
They
Yeah.
sure do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? They sleep on the work site constantly.
They do.
I
I
was
mean,
trying to figure out what's Boss Spearman's financial model. So
Great
they've got
question.
like a not significant amount of cattle, seemingly.
Yep.
Like it and enough to fit in one shot. It's not
Mhm.
like it's miles long, Lonesome Dove
He's
style.
a small business owner.
Yeah, and do they ever mention like we're headed here because we're gonna get like
they
that, like,
never
paid
talk
off?
about like if someone's buying the cows from them or something like that.
So
like
this is Bob Dylan's never-ending tour.
Yeah.
Like they're just like
Yes.
the whole point is to take these cows around in fucking circles. No wonder the Irish guy's like, come on, where are you guys going?
Yeah, do you have a destination in mind?
But it's
you
another-
assholes.
it's
yeah,
an-
across the river and then the other way back across the river.
It's another one that makes this so fascinating. The Costner canon, both as actor and as actor-director, is usually when Costner's stepping up to the plate, the stakes of the movie are, this one's for all the marbles.
Right.
And here's a
Yes.
movie
There-
where these two guys are like, we're just doing our thing, and we'd be so happy to continue uninterrupted.
Right.
And you fucked with us a little bit, and we're debating whether or not we can let this pass.
Right.
What were you going to say, CR? Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like it is one of those things that when you watch this film for the third or fourth time, you're just like, wait, where are they going?
Yeah,
Like,
nowhere.
You guys go to Montana? Like where's the station?
No, but it's what's so profound about the Benning relationship to me is that like the conversation about Bluebell, what's his name? Sorry, Bluebonnet losing
boss is
his wife and child.
Yes,
would never have come up had they not been taken off their usual routine.
Right.
Costner never would have heard this. It makes him view his friend in a different way, which makes him view himself in a different way, which then meeting this woman for the first time, he's just like, do I just want to go back to this fucking loop of doing this shit over and over again?
Yeah, he's also running away from his past.
Yes.
And, in the sort of drudgery and the kind of like hard work, right? I'll just do this. Like, at least I'm fine at this and I'm not hurting anyone doing this.
He's got that great line where he talks about
That's why the reluctance, I think. He's like, I can take these guys down probably, but like, do I want to open that up again? Me like shooting people.
The line where he refers to the fact that he had a knack for it.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Which is what freaks him out, that he was good at it.
He's good at it. Right.
Yeah. Killing people.
You know what he's good at is fucking busting through a wall like the Incredible Hulk so he can shoot the 14th guy that's after
Just
him.
let me know when it's green light to talk about the gunfight.
I think we're almost there. I'm trying to think of, like, are there any other touching, sensitive, atmospheric, environmental moments we need to remark on?
So there was a couple of things that when you're watching it, when I was watching it this time, I was like, wow, like the details that he's talked about this a lot, the details that he chooses to focus on, like bridging the road in town that's flooded.
I love that. Yes.
And there's lots of moments like that, like whether it's setting up camp, playing cards, like you said,
digging the wagon out, like
digging the wagon out,
is a pain in
and
the ass.
This really kind of almost like every other director, this is like a 2-second shot of them walking across the road. Like it's
right. And instead it's like, no, if it
like,
rains, you cannot get from the one side of the town to the other. Like, it's like, yeah.
He's a real obsessive devil in the details guy. And I do think it's why the Postman is the obvious stumble, is like, he's not good at world building in a fictional way.
Right.
He's great at, within realistic circumstances, drilling down to like, and what are the tiny moments within that most people would skip over? When he also has to create the universe and establish new rules, Bill Maher style.
I'm so fucking sick of that guy.
Really? I think he's starting to get good.
He's really rounded into shape.
My brother is obsessed with sending me clips of Bill Maher. I guess he has a podcast too.
He doesn't have a podcast. He has Club Random, Club Work.
Yeah, where he smokes blunts with comedians and talks about cancel culture.
Have you guys seen the Bill Burr clip?
Bill Burr is like, where
what
he's
the
like,
fuck are you talking about?
Right, where he's like, shut up, Bill. Like, I know about this stuff. And Bill Burr correctly is like, you've never done anything in the sphere of foreign relations. You're an asshole with a fucking talk show. Why are you better than me on this?
So satisfying. It's the only time anyone has ever been like, based on what?
Right? What, do you host a show with the word politics in it? In the title? Jay Leno goes on that show. It's like this isn't the fucking like think tank. Sorry. New rules. Wait, what were we talking about?
God damn it.
We were talking about fording the flooded town, which also great note.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Go ahead.
No. Just the Postman thing of like, he's trying to
he can't do the world building. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
No, boy. Also what, Chris?
I think they used like 32,000 tons of water, and that would be like a total. Like if I was producing this movie, I'd be like, man, really? Like, because there's no fucking Chekhov in this movie. There's no. This is Chekhov's flood.
Right.
It's gonna come back. It's like. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it's flooding that night, other than it's like it traps them in town.
He saves the dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is both
That's
a screenwriting gambit of, hey, this cause ain't so bad. He'll go save the dog.
And the bad guy is so bad because he killed the dog.
Right. But then also Costner's, the townspeople are like, these are all right guys. That's pretty much it.
Yes.
But
that's true.
But then, of course, he saves the dog. And
but you don't need 32,000 tons of water to make
so
that
much
point.
water.
But
He could have just saved the dog from like falling in the river that was already there.
The movie costs $22 all in.
Yeah.
All the actors, I believe, work for scale.
Right.
And the crew, I think, basically all worked for scale. They spent $1 million building the town. Is that correct?
He built the town because he didn't like the look of any
is
of
$1
the
million the
towns.
number?
That's something like that.
Right. They couldn't find.
But it was doing stuff like where they were like the buildings are too far apart. He's like, make them closer. You know, like it's like fuck.
They built the town from scratch.
Yeah.
In just an open range. Let's say
they filmed it in Alberta, Canada, which is where you film westerns because it's still like rugged and rural enough.
There's, so much of the entire country that is fully unpopulated.
Yeah.
And he has said like the only reason this movie looks as good as it does is because Canada basically gave me 3 times the production value,
right,
at better rates with good crews
fantastic.
And whatever,
right.
But this set they constructed in whole, so none of it was on sound stages. All the interiors are done in these buildings that they constructed just for this movie.
Right,
was so far out from civilization they had to spend an additional $60,000 paving the road so they could drive.
God bless.
From the nearest town to the set. And that's like him just being like, no, this is the place to spend the money.
No, the production value of this thing's immense. It looks like a way more expensive movie.
Yeah, it looks like a $60 million movie. Yeah.
I think the only other thing we should talk about for the shootout is the chocolate scene.
Yes.
Which is kind of just the scene that gets cut. I think Costner's right about that.
Mm-hmm.
In the hands of like a whatever. Just like, let's make a Western. Like, we don't need him rhapsodizing about... Is it Belgian chocolate or Cuban chocolate?
No, it's Switzerland.
Swiss chocolate.
Dark Swiss chocolate.
It's dark chocolate or bittersweet chocolate. Yeah. And like every part of that scene is on the chopping block if it's a normal movie.
100%.
But like the things that come out of that where it's like, first of all, like you get the tour of candy that would have been available at the time.
Yeah.
Then you get this store owner.
Great
like,
performance.
I can't afford to indulge
my own product
in anything that I sell.
Right. I'm the high-end sort of leisure class.
Yeah, that's like 20% of my margin if I eat one of those.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And the interaction between the store owner and Duval, where Duval's like, you should live a life where you can have the chocolate.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's such a great moment. And it's so crazy that that's just happening before like an all-out slaughter is about to happen outside of this.
Well, here's another thing. In most Westerns, at this moment where the two guys shake hands and go, I guess we're going into battle,
yes.
right? We might not make it out of this.
Right. Because they could always walk away. They could always just like take it on the chin.
In 9 out of 10 movies where that's the setup, the next scene is Costner goes to Annette Bening's door at night in the rain, tells her he loves her. They at least have a kiss, if not sleep together. And then the next morning he goes to the shootout.
Yeah.
And it's like with the love of the woman in his heart.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead, the chocolate scene is replacing that scene because he still basically hasn't built up the courage to have the direct conversation with her. And it is only after he's survived the shootout does he have that talk with her.
Yeah.
The chocolate is like the indulgence, but it's also the slight emotional grounding of like, what am I doing this for?
Right.
Them giving the bite back to the store owner, let him try it, is so good.
Yeah. Right.
And I just love them coming in and being like, what's the best thing you got? We need to
what is your number one most expensive item?
We need to spoil ourselves.
Right.
I'm getting in the coffin with empty pockets. Let's go.
Oh, God damn. That's so it. And of course, yes. Then right before they go to war, Charlie is like, what is your name? Your name is not Boss.
Right.
I need to know your given name before we die.
Blue Bonnet Spearman.
Fucking Blue Bonnet.
The greatest name in the world.
And
I want to
he's
get
Charlie Postlethwaite.
Yeah, Postlethwaite. That he does say, right.
Yeah.
It's not Waite, it's Postlethwaite.
Yeah.
Right. I guess he's embarrassed about sharing a name with a great character actor.
Probably.
That's right.
Or embarrassed that he's Irish.
Yeah, maybe.
That's right. That's right.
That might
Deep
honestly
Irish
be.
Yeah.
I want to get like an Atlantic City airbrushed name shirt that just says Blue Bonnet Spearman.
The one guy who recognizes that will mean a lot to him.
And just a chocolate bar
Dude's
above it.
Rock.
It is such a good name. But what was the other thing I was going to say? You have the earlier moment. Is it when Benning is making them tea, where Duvall comments on that he can't hold the tea glass?
Yes.
Yeah, he can't
that
get
the
his
hole is too
fingers
big
in
because
the
he's
hole.
broken
Yeah.
his knuckles too many times.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
That
These
guys,
are men.
but these guys have broken themselves in a way where they almost cannot enjoy life.
Right. Obviously, the tea set, which is another thing Costner is like, that gets cut if it's not Costner directing.
Yeah.
Is this other motif of like, their sensitive side.
They
right?
seem
Their
stinky.
carefulness.
Yeah.
They're probably a little stinky.
They seem really stinky in that setting in her home.
Before we get
I think they feel that way. They feel like these oafs, like, like that's what you're saying about Costner. He doesn't know how to talk to her.
I want to say, so before we get to the shootout, just to like lay out, they bring Mose to the doctor, right? She's just standing by assisting. He makes the assumption she's a wife. Then they keep on going back there, and she starts not reluctantly, but starts very quietly, timidly making these overtures of you could spend the night.
Right.
And he's just shutting it down.
He's like, I'm too nasty. Like, I think he's truly like, I'm too dirty to be in your house.
I belong out in the wild.
Right.
Like, I'm not domesticated.
There's that part of it. And also, he's like, isn't that your husband?
Yeah.
I have too much integrity to sleep with another man's woman. Then it takes so long for him to come around and be like, hey, this is so embarrassing.
Right.
You're never going to... I thought that was your brother. So last night when you told me to stay over, I thought it was your husband.
Right,
now he was your brother. Isn't this like crazy? And then even still, he doesn't act upon it.
Right.
Because then he's like, but also I'm a piece of shit. I'm a disgusting
He
oaf.
thinks he's going to die.
And I'm going to die. And you don't need to get involved with me.
So it's the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And how many guys does Gambon have, do we think? Does someone have a
6
count?
or 7?
Does he have more? There's
so
like a lot of guys.
He has the 3 that are in jail plus James Russo, who we haven't mentioned yet.
Who rocks, obviously.
And those guys are all fucked up on chloroform. So that's awesome.
Oh, let's also call out the guy who plays the doctor. Benning's brother.
Dean McDermott.
I was like, why does this guy look so familiar? Why does his name sound so familiar? And then I realized he's fucking Tori Spelling's crazy husband
and he's been on like a 10-year reality show.
Right,
yes.
their reality run. What was it called?
The reality show that is known as all of our fucking gossip cycles that they've just been monopolizing for decades.
He gives a perfectly sort of locked down performance, and this is totally fine.
He like limps in and limps out 3 times. Yeah.
James Russo, I mean, just watch him in Beverly Hills Cop, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Playing a loose cannon. Love James Russo. Like, that guy has to play a dirtbag, though, right?
Yes.
Has he ever not?
No, and this is him just playing the ultimate. Like, I killed your friend. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those guys are in jail. And then I think Baxter's got about 9, 12 guys otherwise, because it's like 8 guys walking up the street and 3 or 4 hiding in the galleys.
Button is in bed still, laid up.
Button's laid up.
Mose is gone.
Mose is in the ground.
It's
the dog's in the ground.
Just the 2 guys going into
two guys.
Yeah.
And they kick off. It's the coolest moment, basically, in movie history, is Costner just plugging one in Kim Coates' face.
Which one of you killed Mose?
The preamble, though, is really awesome. It's
Give
him
me the
being
preamble.
like, this is how this is going to go down.
Right.
Like,
him
these
talking
guys,
to Blue
there's
Bonnet,
might be 2 killers, 3 cowpokes, a couple of ex-union guy or ex-army guys, and then they're gonna come up the street. Once we start shooting, like if they're made of anything, they'll try and like retaliate, but there's gonna be a couple who scatter.
Yep.
Like, here's how you live through this. Here's how we're just gonna make a run for the barn. And they're not counting on the townsfolk rising up in rebellion against Baxter, but they get lucky with that. But yeah, and then it is one of the all-time Western moves, which is like take the biggest guy out on the yard first.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he just walks up to Kim Coates is on screen for 90 seconds.
Kim Coates literally is, I mean, he's a good actor. I like Kim Coates. Yeah, he just is there to be shot in the head, which is a privilege.
But
I would love to
be
that.
a giant prick, to be like, I loved killing him,
And
this is, to paraphrase the recently departed why am I fucking blanking on his name? Bob Rafelson.
Sure. Okay. That's not who I thought you were going to say. Fine. Bob Rafelson. What did he say?
The famous line about him watching Bogdanovich's dailies from last picture show when the studio was freaked out and said he's not getting the right coverage. And he said, this thing's going to cut together like butter. And this whole fucking final shootout sequence is like that, where it's just like every shot is so deliberate and so specific, starting with the cut of Costner taking out the gun, immediately going to reverse shot a bullet in head.
Yeah.
And then just, it's chaos.
There's like 40 minutes left in the movie when the gunfight starts, I think.
It's like 20 minutes or shootout, 20 minutes or emotional wrap up.
Yeah, 15 minutes emotional wrap up, credits. Like that's how they do it.
Yeah.
And it's like it's both incredibly badass and it's also like a bunch of guys in their 30s and 40s wearing suits.
Yeah.
Or like cowboy outfits scrambling around, randomly firing, and like maybe they hit someone, like you say, with these shitty old guns.
Well, and the deliberateness of when you have something that's kind of badass and cinematic, like fucking Costner. Duvall, there's the part where Duvall shoots the guy through the other side of the barn.
Yes.
And
That
the whole created by his
rules.
gun is like the silhouette of his body, like he's a fucking Looney Tunes character.
Yeah.
But then sometimes it's like Costner's moving the camera like fucking 5 miles away.
Yeah.
And letting you just watch with this sort of like objective distance. These guys scrambling around in the heat, struggling to reload. Like it looks as lame and clumsy as it possibly could.
Yes, and it's all wide angles, so you kind of always know where you are in the town, which is really brief because like you would want, ordinarily you would just do all these quick cutting close-ups, and there's like some long sequence where Costner's shooting at a guy who's hiding behind a water barrel.
Yes.
And it's shot from underneath a horse, basically.
Yeah.
Tilted up, and it's just like Costner slowly like kind of blowing away this water barrel to get to the other side to get to the guy he's attacking. And it's actually, like you get into like the whole like, can you make an anti-war movie? Can you make an anti-gunfight movie in a western? And it's like, this is pretty close. I mean, there's some badass parts of it, but is also like, man, this would really suck. Like
it would really suck. I would be really bad at it. I would probably
really
die.
scared.
You'd be scared. And it kind of also reinforces the whole myth of like the gunfighting in the West, and like is you start to realize like, right, this is people watching from a house 500 yards away as these guys kind of scramble around and they're like shooting puffs of smoke at each other, and you're like, I think he got him. I don't know. Like it's not like whatever the Wyatt Earp mythos of like, yeah, he would just come in and clear everyone out.
But also like, just tracking people and objects in space and time, which for me is the cornerstone of narrative filmmaking.
Sure.
And the clarity with which you're able to do that. This final chunk of the movie, you got like 15 characters in place.
Yeah.
Yep.
Across basically like 3 city blocks.
Yeah.
And you're always perfectly on top of what he needs you to follow, what he wants you to follow. Can I just read directly here? This was Costner in an interview with Roger Ebert right when the movie was coming out about what you were saying, Chris. It was very much his intent to like make a gunfight that didn't make guns seem cool.
Right.
Yeah.
He said, I know I'm going to get my gunfight. That's an obligatory thing, and I was happy to do it and wanted to do it, but I think guns should be loud in a movie and scare you.
I remember this being so loud in the theater. The guns are so loud in this movie.
The best anti-gun message is that there is a result after guns go off. It's not just people who are hurt. Animals are hurt, and buildings are torn up, and people are scarred for life. A couple people told me that after the gunfight, we should go have a drink and have a nice ending. And I said, if you look at the old black and white photos of the Old West, if there are people dead in the street, townsfolk gather and look at them, and those bodies don't disappear.
Right.
Somebody has to
Someone's
pick
gotta
them up.
deal with them.
There's an aftermath of violence. If a normal person sees it, it will make them sick.
Yeah.
Go off, Costner.
Rules.
It's so funny because Costner I'm like, you're like this coddled movie star, but then he just hypnotizes me, and I'm like, you're from then.
Yes.
you understand.
There's a story.
There's also, and like he never also like he doesn't drop the dramatic principles of the movie and the characters during the gunfight. Maybe the best part of the whole gunfight is when Charlie's hunting down that wounded guy, and Boss jumps in front. And he's just like, we may kill, but we're not murderers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And this distinction of like, because a lot of this movie is about like domesticating the West and whether this like rough and tumble ranch hand can hold a teacup, and the changing of the sort of country at that time.
Whether there's place for them. Right.
But
whether
this
there's
guy's
space
like,
for
you let the beast out, and now you want to have rules about how we clean this up. But Boss is like, I have these principles where it's just like, if somebody quote unquote deserves it, like that we go through with it. But this guy's wounded. He's not going to hunt you down. Like it's a great little moment. And then they shoot it in such a way where you see like Duval wins the scene pretty much, but Charlie walks over to the side of the barn and is like basically having like a PTSD moment, but it's in like the back of the frame. So it's a really, really interesting way of blocking it and shooting it.
And the final shootout happens with 2 old guys slumped in corners of a small room.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like a foot away from each other.
And then Gambon just being like, I'm dying. And he says it in this way that's kind of incredulous. And Duval's like, yeah, I don't feel bad for you. This was over like cows.
Yeah.
You're stupid. Like,
Yes.
Duval's not like, I understand. I'm here with you. I'm sorry that, we're Bushido here, right? He's just like, you're dumb. Like, we just ate grass. That's all we did. You dumb Irish prick. He doesn't say the last part.
We skipped over it. But it is such a good moment when Gambon basically takes the doctor hostage and holds Benning at gunpoint.
Right.
Yeah.
He's kind of overplaying his hand at that point.
Which she calls out.
Yes, where he's like, I own all of the you in this town. Like, you all are beholden to my behavior. Right. Yeah. He's mean. He's a nasty bugger.
He's a nasty piece of shit.
The whole thing with Gambon was that, like, in the 90s in Britain, it was like, this is one of the most masterful theater actors that ever lived. Right. He's a king. He does a lot of British TV and, like, indie movies and Peter Greenway stuff.
Toys.
He's in toys. He's in stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when he was going to do, I think, The Caretaker or something, like some theater thing in New York, Actors Equity blocked him for not being a big enough star because Equity could block him.
Yeah.
And Britain was one of those things where they're like, this is Michael Gambon. You don't misbehave like this.
Yeah.
This is one of our legends.
Yeah.
And then right after that is when he suddenly is like in any Hollywood movie. Like
Gosford
one
Park is 01.
Yeah.
Life Aquatics 03.
He's really funny in Life Aquatics.
I feel like there's another early 2000s one.
There definitely is.
His first Potter is the year after this, is 04.
Right.
You get the sense that if that one were directed by anyone other than Alfonso Cuarón, they would have gone with a more obvious choice.
No, exactly. Cuarón picks him because he likes that he has this kind of like saucy, wicked side.
And the rumble side of him. He was like, we're presenting this guy as like sort of too kingly and too benevolent.
I mean, he's the prime minister in Ali G in the house. Is that what
That's
you're
what
thinking?
Layer Cake. That's right.
He's
Layer
really
Cake.
good in Layer Cake. He's really, that's a fun performance. Yeah, and then it's just he becomes one of those British guys that's like, I'll play a Brit for you, but also I can be in like The Good Shepherd or something. Like, I can play like a kind of Tony American guy for you.
Yeah.
I can be a villain. And I can, what, you want some like video game narration? I'll do that. Right? Like, he's just like around. Oh, he definitely did that.
In what?
I think Elder Scrolls Online. Yeah, there you go. Like he worked.
Yeah, no, he worked.
I saw him on stage.
Sleepy Hollow. That's it. 99 Sleepy Hollow and The Inside.
Oh yeah, Sleepy Hollow. He's great in that.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are sort of his first 2 Hollywood toe dips.
He played a president. Did he play Johnson? He played President something.
I'm looking through.
Yeah, he played Lyndon Johnson in Path to War. Okay. It was like a TV movie.
Yeah.
I saw him on stage in Henry IV playing playing Falstaff with Matthew McFadden as Henry V.
Okay.
And David Bradley as Henry IV.
Yeah.
Incredible. And I saw him on stage in A Number, which is an amazing play where Daniel Craig played 3 clones, and he's the creator of the clones. So cool. It was just the 2 of them yelling at each other on stage.
I saw it when they did it here, and it was Dallas Roberts. And I'm trying to remember who would have played the father.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Good play.
Yeah, good play. They made it into a
Gambon.
movie?
Or a TV movie.
Wilkinson and Hardy? Is that right?
Sounds all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Well, no, Rhys Ifans and Tom Wilkinson.
Gotcha.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah. But I love Gambon, and whatever. He's an asshole and he gets shot in the face and he's dead.
And then the last 15 minutes?
And then like some movies, again, the Costner thing, some movies end right there.
He rides
off.
off.
All right, we did it. See you later. Yeah, I'm Shane. I got to go. I'm fucking Pale Rider.
I can't believe the extra 20 on this one. You're just like, wait a second.
I mean,
is there like...
Audiences are shifting.
Is there like a stinger on this? Like, what's going on?
Well, it's also the double down of being like, and now the guy's got his shit figured out, right? And he goes to Benning and he's like, I'm not quite ready to commit.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
I'm going to tell you now that I should have proposed to you yesterday.
Right.
And I'm going to do it now, but also I need
Sam
to ride
Shepard.
off. Correct. There we go.
And Dallas Roberts.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still kind of afraid of his feelings. And she's like, I don't give a shit. I have a big idea of our future together.
Right. He's like, I'm sure you wouldn't want to wait for me. And she's like, what do you mean wait for you?
Yeah, she's like, what's going on
the
around here?
alternative?
Right, yeah.
And he rides off, and it's this trick that many movies pull that is incredible because it should never work. Where like a character leaves dramatically, and then the movie straight cuts to them returning a while later.
Right.
And
that's the only thing that they skip through in this movie. is his return.
And like so little time has passed for the audience. Right. There's no feeling of absence that we've had to live through. He basically cuts to like 3 shots of nature and then cuts back to him riding up in a different outfit.
Right.
And she's been waiting for him.
And also Duval's like, that Swiss chocolate has given me a hankering for opening a saloon. And
whatever. They do it.
Yeah.
They just
there's a lot of growth in the cafe industry.
Huge.
I mean, do you think he's like, look, I make nothing driving these fucking cows around all day, and then I go to any cafe and I can get like a side of beef for like 14 cents.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to be on the other side of this. Like, because that's what my impression of like the Old West is like. You'd be like, can I get a 14-ounce steak? And they'd be like, yeah, it's free with your room. Like, of course.
How much does the room cost? A hay penny.
Which is like when you watch Deadwood, you're like, oh yeah, it's the old times, and then in Deadwood they're thrown around like, no, I'm getting $800,000 out of this deal, and you're like, I guess it's not that old,
right?
But then they can also get a room for $1 a week or whatever.
Deadwood is quietly set in 1982.
Yeah.
Anyway, open range. Yes, it takes. Yeah, it's a slow landing. It's a glider coming in. Mm-hmm. That's fine.
Love it.
I love it.
Love it.
Is it sending audiences out like shooting guns in the air? Like maybe not,
Pointedly
but it was like
not.
a slow burn hit.
And then the end credits like happen over footage of how well decorated the home is.
Do you think if you're like
it's the Architectural Digest tour,
truly
of Sue's place? Yeah.
Do you think if you're like a 24-year-old living in Harmonville or whatever this place is called, and there's like not a lot of women around, right?
Sure. Okay. In the time of this film?
Yeah. You're like barking up Annette Bening's tree.
Absolutely.
Right?
This is the most crucial question.
Yeah, if you got
It's
a good eye.
You're like, look, I know you don't want to have kids anymore. You're probably past that part. You're like, but like, I still just want to throw down. Like, let's do it.
It is incredible that she's just like, no one's even asked.
Yeah.
And I've also been waiting for a guy just like you.
Right. Where have you been, essentially? Yeah.
Maybe she needs to buy a shirt that says, I'm with my brother. And wear it all the fucking time. Because it's
also what, like maybe the brother could get a wife.
That
so
could help.
We could make a little bit of a distinction. Like you could introduce people and say, hey, I'm Dr. Dean, and this is my sister who serves as my assistant. It would just like really clear things up.
No, but Tori wouldn't allow it. Like even on screen, she's like, you can't be married. No, you have to be single.
Only thing we weirdly skipped over, because we love to talk about this guy in the podcast, Michael Jeter.
The great Michael Jeter.
Oh, yeah.
In his final film performance.
His last performance.
This is his last performance. The film's dedicated to him.
And very self-consciously styled as like a Walter Brennan style, like John Ford supporting actor in this movie. And it to great effect. Like
and you watch, no disrespect to Walter Brennan, but you watch a lot of those films and you're like, oh, the comedy of the comedy characters is at a wildly different pitch than the rest of the movie.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's your sort of classic.
Back in the day, it was like, hey, we need to like wake people up for 5 minutes. Like go do funny
it's
stuff.
like Michael Bay movies where you're like, you have one guy showing up for 4 scenes who's just
take
like.
your dentures out and blow on a harmonica.
Play into the rafters. The goofiest shit
You're
you've
falling
ever seen.
into a water tub. Just FYI, buddy. Yeah,
Michael Jeter is playing like the emotionally grounded version of that archetype.
Yeah.
And doing it beautifully.
He's a beautiful actor.
And you're just like, it's not like he transformed his look for this, but he shows up in this film and you're like, oh, right, obviously. He is the heir apparent to those
and
guys.
He's got the awesome harness that he can jump around his barn in.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
What a king.
There's a really good Costner quote about him. I mean, he said he screened the movie for Jeter before he died, which he was really happy about.
I'll read it to you. He says, he's very much in the mode of the Walter Brennans and the Ward Bonds. Cooper and Stewart and Wayne, they just wouldn't act without those guys. They needed them to do the dance. You need a scene where someone whoops and hollers, and the heroes can't do that. So you need the whiskey old guy to do the dance. Jeter, one of the great dancers.
Of the most
watch his Tony
dancers.
Acceptance speech.
We'll
for
repost
Grand
it
Hotel.
for the 5th time on our Twitter when this episode comes out.
One of the great moments in broadcast television.
But I also just love that he's like the moral center. They get to the town and they're like, no one wants to stand up against this guy. And he's like, I hate this guy. I'm with you. I've been saying this for so long. This guy sucks.
Do you know that Costner's appendix burst a few weeks into production and he didn't bring it up with anyone?
Yes.
That's great.
Because he didn't want to shut down production. They didn't have the room in the budget.
And they had to build like a new bridge so like appendix doctors.
He was like, you can either have the flood or appendix surgery.
Yeah.
You have to choose one or the other.
He white knuckled it, knew something was wrong, but didn't understand the scale of it. And then once they had wrapped, went to the doctor and they were like, bro, your appendix has been shot for weeks.
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, the movie did well. like like we cost $22 million, makes about 70 worldwide.
It
so
opened at 14, ended up at
legs.
60, so good fucking multiplier, 10 overseas. And he also was just like, the thing I'm investing in is these are long-term investments.
Yes.
You read a lot of these quotes that JJ pulled up, and he's like, the industry has become very obsessed with opening weekends, theatrical grosses, DVD sales, them trying to algorithm out how much this will do in whatever territory. And he's like, you make a good movie, people come to it. It truly is. If you build it, they will come.
He does have this moral thing.
If the movie's a good object, it will continue to play and have value, which is why I'm willing to put my money into it.
Proposition.
Exactly.
We just did Jerry Maguire again on the rewatchables, and his manifesto in the beginning of the movie is partially based on Katzenberg's Disney manifesto they wrote, which is essentially the same thing Costner's talking about, which is we're way too beholden to opening weekend now.
Yes.
So the idea of a movie with legs, and we used to set these movies up so that they could run all summer, and now we're setting these movies up so that they can run for one weekend, and if they fail, we're out of business. Open Range is a perfectly good example of a movie where it's just we're here 21 years later still talking about this thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just because of Horizon. I think a lot of people I know are that's low key one of the best Westerns of the last 30 years.
That's exactly it. It's one of those movies that when you mention it, there are a certain amount, certain people will just be like, oh, well, Open Range is one of my favorite movies. Right.
Yeah.
Quietly. Which is kind of why I wanted to do him in the first place.
Same.
All the other movies he did are the kind of bloated, insane, ego-driven passion projects that clear or bounce that we like to cover on this show.
At the time,
Open Range is a modest, well-made, character-driven movie.
That's what's wild.
That
obviously, next week we will be talking about Horizon, which we have not seen yet,
right?
And is the ultimate test of the balance. But as you said, he made two insane, bloated passion projects.
Right. One hit, one failed.
Right. One a wild success, one a giant disaster, and then the third film is just this reasonable, perfectly executed little masterpiece.
All right, we're gonna play the box office game, Chris. This film came out August 15th, 2003.
Okay.
It opened number 3, 14 mil, as you say.
Good open.
Solid.
Yeah, solid.
But number 1 this week, we're gonna, Griff's gonna try and guess. I mean, feel free to guess if you want,
Is
Chris.
it your favorite movie?
No. Are you talking about, say it.
SWAT?
So the film SWAT,
a
great film, Clark Johnson's
Yes.
SWAT, is number 2.
Okay.
It opened last week. Now that's a film
no drop
I saw
off
in
for SWAT.
theaters.
Yeah.
Solid. SWAT's doing good business. People forget SWAT made
A clean million. A clean 100.
$116 million domestic.
116.
116.
Yeah.
Do you agree with me that SWAT fucks and slaps?
Oh my God, yeah.
More like slap weapons and tactics.
SLAP.
SWAT, which is great, is number 2. But no, number 1 is a horror movie. Big sort of horror title.
2003.
Yeah, it's opening to 36.
It's opening to 36.
Kind of blockbuster numbers for a big horror thing.
Is it Freddy versus Jason?
Freddy versus Jason.
I mean, talk about a great film. A movie I adore.
How do you feel about Freddy
was
versus
there a
Jason?
Scream around there?
This is kind of a dead period in between
is that
Screams.
after?
I
No,
think
'cause
Scream
Scream 3
3 comes out early
No, Scream 3 is
02.
2000.
Scream 3 is
okay.
2000?
Yeah, the Screams come fast.
Right.
And then it's
97, 98, 2000.
That's right.
Yeah. And then 4 is 11.
Yeah. Do you like Freddy versus Jason, Chris?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. You're a smart man.
Yeah.
Who wins again?
Well,
I've seen that movie.
This is the story.
I think Jason, right?
It's Jason, Jason wins, but then maybe Freddy's still alive, right?
The
Jason drowns him in the lake.
The final shot of the movie is Jason rising from the water, victorious,
With his head.
they fought to the death in the water, and the innocent teenagers, 20-somethings, have walked away. They're no longer at the scene of the crime. Jason rises victorious with the machete in hand. The other hand, Freddy's decapitated head. You think Jason's won. As he walks towards the camera, Freddy's head winks.
Right. Okay. So everyone wins.
I think this is maybe a friend of a friend, but I've never forgotten this, who goes to see the film with his girlfriend. And the lights come up after that moment I just described. And she says, I don't get it. Who won? And he turns to her and says, the viewing public. And I always think about
The
that.
audience wins.
Yeah.
The
American viewing public
We
won.
all won.
We all
on
won.
August 15th, 2003.
A perfect
when
movie.
Freddie fought Jason and Blue Bonnet fought that Irish guy
That dirty Irish landowner.
who dared get too big for his britches out in Montana.
Yeah.
All right, so number 2 is SWAT. Number 3 is Open Range. It's a good. We're feasting right now.
We're having a great time.
Number 4, it's a family comedy that is a big hit.
Freaky Friday?
Freaky Friday with Lindsay Lohan.
Also soaring its way to a clean 100 mil, right?
Yeah, and kind of another movie that I think the studio didn't see coming.
No.
Kind
Kind
of
of
like,
a
oh,
dump.
this will do okay, right?
Kind
yeah,
of an
let's dump it in
afterthought.
August, right?
Yeah. There is an argument
Mm.
that in the soup of what made Jamie Lee Curtis, quote unquote, overdue for the Oscar she finally
Friday
wins.
is a huge part of that.
Freaky Friday is like 20%
She's
of
up
it.
there.
Yeah.
That's one of the like
She's really good in that
people talk about that being a bad Oscar snub, that she should have gotten a Best Actress
movie.
nomination.
She got a
that
Golden
year.
Globe now.
Yeah.
It's so weird that she won an Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's a really weird win.
I think that's a really good
I
performance.
think she's good in it. She's
I
fine.
defend it. I
Yeah.
feel like people get caught up on like, oh, she won because of narrative, and I think she's very good in that film.
Who did she beat? I forget.
She beat Stephanie Hsu.
She beat her
Angela
co-star.
Bassett for Wakanda Forever, which was the
All right.
presumed frontrunner going into the night.
Right, but eventually the Oscars were like, we're not fucking voting for the movie with Namor in it, like for anything.
And then the
Sorry.
other two nominees were Carrie Condon.
yeah, who's
Yes,
kind of the
Gary
critic
Condon.
pick.
It's incredible in that.
really good in that.
And then who is the fifth person?
Hong Chow in The Whale. I love that actor.
One of my
I'm
favorites.
happy she got an Oscar nod, but yeah, that's not a win there.
Yeah.
Number 5 at the box office, Griffin, is a family comedy as well.
Another family
Opening this week. It's kind of a bomb.
from August 2003.
It's sort of like
Bomb.
a very, very, very mild camp classic. Very mild. Like, I know a few friends who kind of go to the mat for this as like a good, stupid camp classic.
It's the distributor of the picture.
The distributor is MGM.
Fine folks at MGM.
Yeah.
It's an.
Had a
It's,
real boom time for them.
it's not Sleepover, is it?
No, I don't even know what that is. Oh, I do know what that is.
I think
No.
that might
That
be the
movie's
same
actually
summer.
like all right.
Corel.
No, come on. It's
That's an 04 release.
It's
What?
like
Okay.
an actress, a name actress.
Oh, it's an actress. It's a name actress.
and a kid
In
actor.
2003. It's it's Uptown Girls.
Uptown Girls.
Wow, you ripped that out of the quiver. Great job.
Put that between. Wait, fuck. What's
And
his
my
name?
fingers ready.
Put that between the eyes of I forgot his name already.
What are you saying?
The actor who gets shot in this movie, Kim
Oh.
Coates.
Kim Coates.
Brittany Murphy, Dakota Fanning. Never
Yeah.
seen it. What is
Yeah.
it? It's like she's a nanny, and Dakota Fanning's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, something like that. She's
Cool.
type A. Brittany Murphy's type C.
Number 6, Pirates of the Caribbean, going strong. Number 7, American Wedding, going fine actually.
It's going fine.
Sure.
Yeah.
Seabiscuit's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good
Oh
movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
a film I have definitely seen.
Oh,
yeah, we all saw it.
We all saw
in
it.
03.
it was actually required.
It made 120.
Yeah.
These movies made money.
Best Picture
Goddamn it,
nominee.
America was humming.
Yeah.
You had to see Seabiscuit if you wanted to vote. Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a box office weekend I'm obsessed with that we've weirdly never covered on this show.
Don't bring it up then.
I think it's the last weekend of July was the first time in 2003, the first time in history that the top 5 movies all made more than $20 million.
Yeah, that's it. You're right.
You're like, there was a fucking spread.
Yeah.
Different audiences were being served, and it was Seabiscuit,
Mm-hmm.
Cradle of Life,
Correct.
Spy Kids 3D Game Over,
Just doing a different box office game now.
Pirates of the Caribbean, and whatever weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And is the other one a holdover?
Bad Boys 2.
Yeah.
It's good times. Good times for America, except we were like mired in Iraq and it was actually terrible times for
We
America.
need to believe in a horse.
Spy Kids 3D is number 9 and Bad Boys 2 is number 10, just to close that out. So that is the box office for Open Range. And it does, it has a good run. Like, obviously, the end of August is pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Like, coming up is like The Medallion and Dickie Roberts' Child Star. So like there's space for Costner to graze.
I mean, look,
Is what I'm saying.
in the Deadline article, Costner seems to imply that all in hard production costs of the 4 Horizons will end up being $100 million.
Okay, I couldn't actually. I wanted to ask you.
I was trying to parse
Was he
this.
saying that it was 100 for the first 2 or for all 4?
I had always thought it was 100 for the first 2, and that quote made it sound like he has figured it out, so all 4 will cost 100.
Well, he's also like, I'm just going to start shooting this at the end of May,
Yeah.
whether we have money or not. So I don't know if he's the best accountant in the world.
It is the
Yeah,
most.
I don't know if I want that guy on my books.
I do think he should explore DTC, direct to Costner, and you just like
Costner Plus.
Costner Max.
And like, if you're a dad, it's $10 because like you'll pay it anyway. But
Yeah.
like if you're without children, it's just $5.
That's another.
You're right.
There's such a.
Do you
good-
think there's just like a live stream of him like chopping wood on
Yeah,
Costner
there
Plus?
better
Like,
Well,
if
he
you-
has that Fox News, like the
where
streamer.
he like narrates America.
It's in the national parks.
It's like
And he's
footage
just
of
like,
a tree.
look at this eagle.
Look at her.
Only here.
But you're right. If there was like a
The most
Yule-log
amazing
type
thing-
stream of him just lacquering a table.
The most amazing thing Americans do is act like they invented parks.
Yeah.
It is so insane that they conquered this country and killed the people in
Yeah.
it. And then they're like, and then we had the idea of open parks.
Look at our grass.
We had the idea of not drilling here.
We'll drill right next to it, but not right here.
Right. They want credit for both colonializing and choosing to not
Fucking assholes.
disrupt certain spaces of nature. There's a quote in the Deadline thing where he says something to the effect of like, look, I'm not driven by the opening weekend because some of my audience, they can't really leave the house. And you can hear him talking around. I don't want to say a lot of my core base is 90.
Yeah, he also says like, "Hey, the DVD market is still there," and I'm like, "Yeah, sure, for your audience."
But it's smart because Fleming makes this offhand comment of like,
Right.
well, profits went down because DVD went around. And he's like, my audience buys
Right, they'll still get a
DVDs.
DVD, not a Blu-ray.
They're 90. They're going to send their grandson to Walmart to buy them Horizon Part 1 in October.
Yep.
That's the long
He
play.
knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing.
We're done. Wrap us up, Griffin.
CR, anything you want to plug? Rewatchables.
Rewatchables
The Watch.
to watch. I'm on the big picture with some frequency.
You're in the
It was-
rotation.
Yeah, it was just fantastic to be here, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for making the time. It's amazing to have you after all these years.
It had sort of been on our agenda,
Yeah.
especially after we did the legal draft on Big Picture.
Oh yeah.
That you were part of, and we were sort of like scrounging around, and then we committed to Costner, and there was an aha moment day
Yeah. But
where I
we're,
just turned to Dave and I said, we should obviously ask CR to do Open Range.
but we're going to get you back sooner than,
Please
whatever,
do.
9 years. Yes. Thank you for coming on.
Do you got any strong opinions on riding cars with boys?
Not
to spoil our next
at the
miniseries.
ready. Yeah.
We're not doing Penny Marshall next.
Are we not?
Stop baiting our audience.
Oh,
All right.
God.
All right. Wrap us up, please.
Thank you for being here, Chris. And thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to Marie Barty for helping to produce the show. Thank you to AJ McKeon for editing. AJ McKeon is also our production coordinator. Thank you to Lane Montgomery and the Great American Novel for our theme song. Thank you to KC and the Modern West for the theme song of America. Thank you to JJ Birch for our research. He put so many good paragraph-long
He did.
Costner
Long
quotes in the dossier that we might need to ask Marie to just screenshot
Blast
some of them.
out. Yeah.
Because if we just read every cool thing Costner ever said, we wouldn't have our own opinions on this episode. Thank you to Pat Reynolds, Joe Bowen for our artwork. You can go to blankcheckpod.com for links to some real nerdy shit, including our Patreon, Blank Check special features, where we are doing tabletop games.
Yeah, we are. We're doing. Oh God, what are we doing?
Clue coming out around this time?
Yeah, Waterworld will be up on that
Waterworld.
feed too.
Waterworld.
Yeah, so
Yes.
you can listen to Waterworld
Right.
episode.
Yes.
Yep.
That will be a great one.
Mhm.
I think.
Sure.
Tune in next week for Horizon, An American Saga, Part 1, a film that at the time of this release will have been out for a month and we have
Well,
yet to see.
We might be doing Trap next week.
Oh, you're right.
Trap.
We're
M. Night
taking a
Shyamalan's
little
Trap.
break.
I
We're
think we're
taking
doing that.
Just
We'll
a
talk
little
about it.
interruptus. We have to figure out the timing of the two Horizons and Trap.
Yeah, right. But that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
All right. And
And as always,
Mhm.
Kevin Costner is America's daddy.
all right.